Welcome back to another FPL deadline stream, this time out of Game Week 10. A slightly later deadline than usual on this Saturday, but here we go. The bench boost is activated and I've still got 2 free transfers at my disposal, but there was a set of transfer plans that have kind of slipped by due to the recent price rises, and that's buying Bukayo Saka and Ismaila Sarr for Bruno Fernandes and Gakpo. So I can still get one of them, but not both at the same time. And most likely course of action is that I will sell Pedro Porro for Jurrien Timber and Cody Gakpo for Ismaila Sarr. So that would mean no Bukayo Saka, who is ranked very highly in my Captaincy list this week. You will see my updated list with a few changes from a few days ago, and also the updated clean sheet odds, predicted lineups, team news, injury updates in this ultimate guide for Game Week 10. Drop a like on this video, subscribe to my channel. We are closing in on 37k on YouTube, and by Tuesday for the UCL Fantasy deadline stream ahead of match day 4, we will reach that goal. So let's try to get to that goal as soon as possible, and let's build all our social media platforms like my Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, also my Patreon and the championships. You can click the join button on YouTube or go to patreon.com/FPL Dylan, and you can get so many updates for UCL Fantasy and FPL by joining my Discord server and checking all the links. Join my FPL Challenge and FPL Leagues. That is all very easy to join. But let's get straight into your questions. We have over 2 hours until the deadline, and if we hit our Super Chat objective, then I will be going live for even longer, as we have done in the last couple of live streams. Easy says, he's the one who is sending the messages at the beginning, saying last game week is like a horror Halloween pre-show for some FPL managers. Yeah, the thing I would maybe say to be positive about it is that many people had a bad week. It was quite low scoring in general. The average was around 45, 46, but I was still below that average. It's the first poor game week in quite a while, and ultimately I was only a few points off a green arrow, but yeah, that Van de Ven brace in the end didn't really help. At least I had Pedro Porro to compensate a little bit for it, but yeah, too many players blanked. Ultimately, it was just Gabriel, Porro, and some def coins from Bruno Fernandes, but apart from that, it was pretty poor. Hoping this game week Halloween not turning into another horror show. You will sell Joao Pedro, right? 0 on target in 5 games and 5 consecutive blanks. Not necessarily. He has been poor, and as Enzo Maresca said countless times, he is managing some injury issues, Joao Pedro, which does put you off from owning him, but I do like the Tottenham fixture still, and I know Spurs have been quite solid this season, particularly away from home, but they are 17th in home matches in the Premier League, and Chelsea have a brilliant record against them. In terms of the upcoming fixtures as well, like Wolves at home, I think Joao Pedro could be worth keeping. And you look at the alternatives like Jarrod Bowen, the next two look decent, particularly against Burnley at home, but West Ham are diabolical. Jean-Philippe Mateta is the standout, but I can get to Ismaila Sarr anyway. I don't need to have 2 Palace attackers necessarily, or a triple up overall. So I'm looking at the alternatives, and I've already got Haaland and Voltemada, who I'm happy with. And despite Joao Pedro being quite poor, I don't think there are many standouts in the forward line. Mateta scored a hat-trick against Bournemouth, but you know, you look at all the other games this season, he has been quite underwhelming. Great stats in terms of the underlying numbers, but not enough end product and consistency. So I'm quite happy to keep Joao Pedro at this moment in time. As for your next question or comment, Arsenal and Palace potentially blanking in 17 and doubling in 16. I did cover this yesterday in my Predicted Lineups podcast at the beginning, and the chances of that happening are becoming less likely, especially if Palace and Arsenal play on Tuesday, the 16th of December. So Crystal Palace will have 4 games in 8 days, and ultimately, I don't think it's going to happen. We'll see, and if anything does change, I will let you know. But based on the updates I talked about on Twitter, I don't think that's going to be the situation. Thank you to Luke Fode. Rangers to Sarr for a -4 punt. I think long-term it pays off, so I would still be on board with it. Now, could Rangers score against Bournemouth or get some returns over the coming fixtures? He definitely can, but not as a holding midfielder, which we saw against Aston Villa. I believe Nico Gonzalez will play in that position, so Rangers will play further forward, but ultimately, I think Sarr is the superior asset and he's worth the -4 hit. Now, I've got a similar situation where if I really want Saka and Sarr at the same time, I might have to take a -4 hit, but then my alternatives don't look particularly great. Maybe I could do something like Joao Pedro to Igor Thiago for a -4, or Pedro Porro to a 5.3 defender or below. So it's something I haven't completely ruled out, and in your situation, I would just do it thinking of the long term. If you are wildcarding next week, though, as a 1-week punt, I'm not entirely sure about the -4 hit, so it really depends on your chip strategy and when you're looking to do certain things, but I think if you're looking at this with a bit of a bigger picture, Ismaila Sarr is worth the hit for me. Barav says next week Gordon to Sarr and Tarkowski to Munoz good, or keep Gordon? Well, Gordon doesn't have a single goal contribution in the Premier League this season. He has been brilliant in the Champions League, but it's a different story in this competition. I think that looks really good. On paper, I would do what you said. So do Gordon to Sarr next week. I think that is an upgrade. You also save some money. And Tarkowski to Munoz looks really solid, and you could do that even now. Welcome, Jamie. Always good to see you. And thank you, Banjo. Best pundit online. Thank you very much. Rai says, greetings, Dylan. 82 points last game week. Can't complain. That is a great score considering the sort of low-scoring week it was in general. So, fair play. I had a few 75, and actually I got 82 points in Game Week 8. But yeah, a different story in Game Week 9. Just over half of that. And am I even saying it correctly? No. Yes, it was just over half of that, but yeah, it was quite disappointing for me. What will happen? Expectations versus reality. Well, throughout the course of this stream, I'll be talking about that easy, but yeah. Thank you very much. All the music that you hear in the very intro is from my cousin. If you want a link, I can provide one, but yeah, he has done some great music over the years. Triple Haaland this week when people going differential captaining Arsenal assets, because Haaland is Haaland. I'm not entirely sure about that. Bournemouth are second in the Premier League table. Erling Haaland has a poor record. He has never scored or assisted against a Bournemouth side coached by Iriola in the Premier League. His only goal came in the FA Cup last season when Man City went through, but yeah, I don't think in the Premier League. Look, I'm captaining Haaland at the moment. I am tempted by Gabriel. If I had Saka, I might even push the button, but I don't think Haaland is like that much of a standout. If it was Burnley at home, which I did back in Game Week 6, then yes, I would agree with you, but yeah, by that stage, of course, he wouldn't be a differential. I get what you're saying. I just don't think triple captaining Haaland against a very decent Bournemouth side is the right thing to do. Eze and Mbumo differential mega haul, please. I'm not trying to piss on your cornflakes, as they say, but Mbumo's not a differential. He has 26% ownership now. I think for those that went in early, who enjoyed the returns the last 3 game weeks, you'd have seen some massive rank rises. His EO might not be that high still, but he's not a differential. Eze, just a little bit above that, I think. He has around 14-15% ownership, but I think any returns he does get will lead to significant rises. I don't think that's the case with Mbumo. Hello, Dylan. I did Bowen, Caicedo, and Chalobah out for Mateta, Xhaka, and Munoz for free. Yeah, it looks quite solid. Bowen can still do well in the next 2 fixtures, but West Ham are terrible. Ultimately, I think all of them are upgrades. Caicedo, Xhaka is debatable, but you are saving money in the process and funding the other moves. So as a trio, I think that's the right call. Morning, Dylan. Would you do Virgil to Munoz? Have 2 free transfers and would mean I have double Palace defence. I'm not a big fan of doubling up on Palace defensively. They have a solid defence, and against Arsenal, they were very well structured, but I think one's enough, and Munoz is my favourite. If I didn't have Lacroix, I would easily do Borro to Munoz, without any shadow of a doubt, but against Brentford, I think they'll concede. They might win the game, but I'm a bit unsure about that, to be honest. I think it's an upgrade, and Van Dijk can still get DEFCON, but when will Liverpool keep clean sheets? I don't think they will against Aston Villa. You also look at Man City coming up soon. Then there's a nice fixture run. I would probably roll and reassess. Now, if you really want Munoz and you like his attacking potential, that's understandable, and he is one of my top recommendations in that defensive line. Very exciting to own in Fantasy Premier League, but I don't like the Palace double up defensively. If anything, I double up on their attack with Sarr and Mateta, and even then, you don't have to. Oh yeah, so the last part of the intro, yeah, I can see why it has like a bit of a spooky theme, I guess, but I just changed it for several reasons, actually. Obviously, the other one was a mainstay in the channel. Every single stream you would have heard that. But yeah, now I think they've changed label and stuff, the copyright owners, and so yeah, I'm getting a few like flags, so better to avoid that and just use something that will have no copyright claims. Gakpo, Richards, Van Dijk, Joao Pedro, Bowen, bench 1. I will not bench Bowen, as bad as West Ham are. Bowen's a quality player and he did very well against Leeds. From those options, it's between Richards or Van Dijk to bench, and both of them can get DEFCON. I think Palace have a slightly better chance of a clean sheet, so I'll bench Van Dijk, which sounds crazy. And he can still score. Obviously, he did that in the Champions League against Frankfurt and got player of the match. We all know the quality of player Van Dijk is, but yeah, you'd back Villa to score. At least that's the way I look at it. So I'd probably bench Van Dijk. Start 2, Van der Ven, Senesi, Rodon, Goodmanson. Not particularly great, mate. I'd start 1 Leeds defender. Probably Rodon at this moment in time. And Senesi can get DEFCON, but I think City will still score. Probably Van der Ven. And I think Chelsea will score a few goals. So it's not looking great, but Van der Ven has goal threat. And Spurs are still decent defensively under Thomas Frank compared to the last couple of seasons. I'm scared of Arsenal this year. To be honest, best off-the-ball team I've seen in a while, says Anthony. I think Arsenal have been brilliant off the ball for quite some time now, but things are clicking a little bit. There are still a lot of injuries, and I saw a list recently about the teams with the most injuries in Europe's top 5 leagues. Arsenal's still right up there, by the way, but they have the squad depth. I think that's the key difference at the moment compared to previous seasons, the quality of the players on the bench and the overall squad. Some players who miss out are, capable of getting into most Premier League teams and also across the world. But it's still early days. Arsenal need to just be calm and build upon the momentum. But things are looking great so far, and hopefully they continue. Obviously, I'm a bit biased when I say that. Anish says, hey, Dylan, Raya, Van Dijk, Gabriel, Chalobah, Mbumo, Sarr, Eze, Semenyo, Caicedo, Haaland, Voltemada, and on the bench, Dubravka, Joao Pedro, Senesi, Goodmanson. I personally wouldn't bench Joao Pedro, but I understand why you're doing it. His form isn't there. He's not even taking shots. But I would still be tempted to start him over Caicedo, for example, even though I'd back both of them to start. Caicedo can score a goal, as we've seen this season. He can get DEFCON, but that hasn't been the case in recent matches. But I still think Joao Pedro can get a return here. So overall, I get why you've structured things in the way you have. I'd maybe place Goodmanson above Senesi in the bench pecking order, but I would start Joao Pedro and probably over Moises Caicedo. Nothing new about Saliba. It was covered in yesterday's predicted lineups, but essentially he is still a doubt. He hasn't been officially ruled out though, like Martinelli. The Burnley game comes too early for him. I would expect Mosquera to start though, and I think Saliba's a sell anyway. His ceiling isn't that high. No goals, no assists. I think he's got one key pass? I talked about the stats very recently, but they're very poor underlying numbers. 0 shots. You're not really going to get much in terms of attacking returns, and even bonus points. I think Gabriel and Timber trump it by some distance. Thank you to Fantasy Premier League 891. I think this is FPL Diamond, by the way, but for some reason YouTube have changed the usernames and stuff, so it's catching me a bit off guard. So like, share, subscribe, support your quality channel as you continue to get brilliant content on a consistent basis. I appreciate that. Bench Enzo or Semenyo? It's a very tough call. If I had to pick, it's probably Semenyo. I think Enzo can do really well against Tottenham. We saw what he did last season, albeit against a different team and manager, but I would bench Semenyo out of the two. FPL Kevy, pardon me, will be my first week going 5 at the back. Gabriel, Virgil, Richards, Tarkovsky, Mukiele. Reinders is a dead spot on my bench now until I sell or he returns. Yeah, I get that. Obviously, there's a lot of hype about him after Game Week 1. I owned him from that Wolves return, and I thought we could have a gem on our hands. I wasn't expecting that every week, but he has been very inconsistent. I benched him against Arsenal when he got 9 points, but look, quality player, still adapting to the league. He should not be played as a lone 6. I think Pep Guardiola knows that, but Nico wasn't ready to start the game against Aston Villa. But I think Reinders will play further forward in the next couple of games. He could get some returns, but I still think he's a sell, to be honest. So I understand why you've done things like that. I'd still be tempted to start Reinders over one of Richards, Virgil van Dijk, or Tarkovsky, to be fair. Obviously, someone asked me earlier about Van Dijk and Richards. Van Dijk has the highest ceiling. I'm not going to deny that. But I think Richards is more likely to keep a clean sheet this week. Is Salah to Saka and King to Sarr for a -4 hit worth it? At the moment, I'd have to say yes. Now, Salah can do well against Aston Villa. He scored in this fixture last season, and it was towards the very end. I think there was a few mistakes made by Diego Carlos and defenders like that. Obviously, he won't be featuring in this match, but yeah, overall, I'd say it's worth it. It's a very solid duo. I had the opportunity to buy Saka and Sarr for free, and now it would require a -4 hit. What I'm going to do, though, before focusing on member questions first and then going to the rest in order of submission, is putting out a poll, and I want to see your thoughts. You can see my team on screen. In a little while, I'll go through different screens like the FDR, predicted points, and all of that jazz, top 10 captains, clean sheet odds, you name it. Let's put this poll out. It will also show you all my transfer plans, so newcomers who didn't see my team selection or who are tuning in late can just see what I'm thinking about doing for the upcoming deadline. I've got 2 free transfers, so let's see. So let's do Fernandes, Gakpo, and Joao Pedro. Let's put JP. Oh yeah, unfortunately the character limit is very, very annoying in this. So let me just try to find a way to make this work. I am quite limited when it comes to this. Yeah, YouTube don't really give you many characters to maybe express what you want to do. So let's get this up. That's annoying. Okay. So then that would be Saka, Thiago. Let's see, how do I even make this work? That is very annoying. Maybe like that. So let's see, first option would be for a -4 hit. Okay. And then let's do Bruno. Yeah, to be fair, I'd say Borro and Gakpo. And then that would be to Timber and Sa. That'll be for free. I'd probably stick to these sort of transfer plans and not overcomplicate it, because otherwise, oh, should I do A, B, C, D, E? And yeah, we just go through the whole alphabet. So these are my current transfer plans. Remember, the first option is for a -4 hit. The second one would be for 2 free transfers. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. I'm quite keen on buying Sa. I have been for quite a while. Obviously, that brace against Liverpool in the Carabao Cup will rear everyone's head and they want to go for him. But I think long-term, he will be a quality FPL asset. So I'll go through the poll results in a little bit, let it build up over time. But let's go for a few member questions first before delving into all the key stats for Game Week 10 and beyond. So let me just make sure that no super chats were all covered on that front, I think. So that's good. Okay. Yeah, look, now it's showing, FPL Diamond, I saw your message again, and now it's showing your name. I don't know if you changed it afterwards, but yeah, YouTube is being a bit funny recently. So Rai puts his team. So what is this? Wait. Haaland, Richarlison. So Joao Pedro, Haaland, Richarlison. And then you're saying Anthony to Ismail Assar, Bruno Fernandes to Mbeumo, Richarlison to Thiago. Yeah, that looks very solid, actually. I mean, Bruno Fernandes to Mbeumo, I'd only do to fund the other moves. I wouldn't necessarily just do it because I see it as a massive upgrade, even though in recent weeks it has been. But I don't really see too many problems with what you're saying. I do like that. Dylan, best attacking midfield differential. Well, so basically just midfielders in FPL, maybe with more offensive threat. I mean, Ismail Assar's not a differential anymore, I can tell you that. Nor is he massively template, but yeah, I'm not so sure. I'd probably say, well, Declan Rice I do like. I'm not saying he's an attacking option. He's not a massive differential either, but 14.4% ownership, real consistency. He can get the odd DEFCON points. He's on set pieces. He can get the odd goal. He's also getting plenty of assists. I do like Declan Rice, but in terms of pure attacking, I think Enzo Fernandez this week, he's being sold, so his ownership is similar to Rice now, 14.4% ownership. Yeah, I do like Chelsea's next few fixtures, and Enzo Fernandez, if he plays in a more offensive role, he'll be even more appealing. So that's what stands out to me at the moment, to be fair. There aren't too many differentials in the midfield. Maybe Eze, even though his ownership is also identical. I think it's also 14.3% ownership, all very similar. Ismail Assar is currently at 11%, to be fair. He's got lower ownership, and he's the one I've been recommending for quite some time. So I'd say one of those options, Sa, because he's got even lower ownership, and Palace are near the top of the FDR. I think Ismail Assar would be the closest to that sort of criteria. Rufs versus Pope this week. That's a close one. I would lean towards Nick Pope, but that is a very tough one. Bench Joao Pedro, Caicedo or Doku? Probably Doku. Sell Enzo or Paqueta for Tavernier for a -8. I would not be selling Enzo. No, just why would you do that? I mean, Bournemouth are playing Man City away, and granted, City aren't the best defensively, but they haven't conceded too many goals with Donnarumma in the side, and Bournemouth have a terrible record at the Etihad. Even last season, when they beat them at home, it was a different story away from home and Man City won 3-1. So I just wouldn't do that. I don't think it makes much sense. So yeah, some of these questions I've covered, so apologies for going through that. Bodo to Timber or Joao Pedro to Mateta, only one free transfer left. I think the bigger upgrade is Bodo to Timber, personally. FPL Kevy says, only move I was close to making was Bowen to Voltemada for a hit. Bowen, one of my favourite Premier League players though. Should I keep him till the Burnley next week at least? Well, I do prefer Voltemada this week, but for a hit, I'm not so sure. And as good as Voltemada has been, he has only returned once in an away match, and that was against Brighton. He got 8 points on that occasion, but Newcastle have struggled away from home. They haven't scored many goals or created chances, so I just keep Bowen for the next two and then reassess the situation. He's probably a sell by Gameweek 12. I mean, I like Bowen. He scored so many times against Arsenal, but I still rate the player very, very good. One of the best outside the big six. So, yeah, I do like Bowen. Hello, Dylan. Enzo, Joao Pedro, Rangers, 2 to start. I'd lean towards Enzo and Joao Pedro and have Rangers on the bench. Welcome, Safir. Good to see you. FPL Diamond says bench Mateta or Welbeck. I'd probably bench Welbeck out of the two, but I think I've got both of them in FPL Challenge, which you'll see later on. Yeah, that is quite difficult. I'd rather downgrade or bench somebody else. Baraf says downgrade Gordon or Bowen for Sarr and Munoz. Well, the thing is, there's also context that needs to be applied to this question. I prefer Bowen over Gordon, but you can do Bowen to Igor Thiago. Whilst with Gordon, who can you downgrade to? Maybe Sarr, Enzo Fernandez. So it just depends on, who you're bringing in both situations. But I'll be honest, I'd rather have Bowen, at least for the next 2-3 game weeks. Maybe this week, of course, you'd back Newcastle to win. But Bowen's a quality asset. He's talismanic still. And he's fairly consistent, despite the fact that West Ham are diabolical this season. So, to be honest with you, based on Gordon's form in the Premier League, I'd rather downgrade Gordon. I know Van der Ven hauled massively, but I sold him and Joao Pedro and now own Triple Palace. Yeah, I think it's very important sometimes to separate, I just got a massive return from this player, I should keep him, to, okay, I got the points, I'm going to run with it. Timing is very important. And we'll see. Maybe Spurs do the unthinkable. They beat Chelsea, they keep a clean sheet, and they go on a run. You never know what can happen in football, but I think if you look at history, you look at the stats and also the probabilities, I think Chelsea have a chance of scoring a few goals. I don't see many clean sheets for Van der Ven over the next couple of weeks. Their easiest fixtures, Fulham at home. The rest are quite poor on paper. So, yeah, I think that's the right call. Now, with Joao Pedro, I think he could do very well over the next couple of weeks. I don't expect him to just blank in 7, 8, 9 consecutive games, but it's already 5 matches in a row, and he's not even taking shots, which is a big concern. So, ultimately, buying Mateta for Joao Pedro, it makes sense. I do see it as an upgrade long-term, but of course, timing can also be very important with that. Hey, Dylan, pick one, Alderete or Richards. I was asked this in my videos, and I didn't have Alderete in my predicted lineup yesterday. So, whilst Richards is more nailed on to start in Game Week 10, the better chance of a clean sheet or returns is from Alderete. So, I would take the chance on Alderete and start him over Richards. Bench one in Enzo Semenyo. It sounds ridiculous to say this, but I'd definitely start Enzo, and it's between the other two for that final spot, and it's very, very difficult. But I'd probably bench in and I like him so much as a player. He can get DEFCON, but I think his ceiling is the lowest of the 3 players. Keep Joao Pedro for 1 more week. The thing is, look, you can say that he blanks again against Tottenham and then you pull the trigger, but then it's Wolves at home. And look, ultimately, you just can't keep, holding on to something that just keeps on blanking. But I'd be tempted, or consider at least, keeping the likes of Joao Pedro, Enzo Fernandez for the next 2-3 games, and then you can reassess. I'm more keen on keeping Enzo Fernandez long-term. Joao Pedro is more sellable, but I mentioned this before in the stream. You look at the alternatives, they're not particularly great. So yeah, thank you, Baraf, and a lot of emojis and stickers there, which you can get as a member of the channel. I'm not going Joao Pedro to Mateta. I don't think so. You can see my options in the poll now. So Bodoro and Gakpo to Timber and Sarr is winning. The Bruno, Gakpo, Joao Pedro to Saka, Sarr and Thiago route for a -4 is trailing by quite some distance right now. But yeah, to be honest with you, I like Mateta. I'm not in a rush to sell Joao Pedro despite his recent blanks. So yeah, with this one as well, I'd start Alderete just to be clear. And then we got a Joao Pedro prop. Mohammed says, Joao Pedro will make everyone regret selling him. If I keep him, I hope that's the case. And it also means Tottenham will concede some goals. Play Minto or Enzo. That's a very close call. I'd still pick Enzo, though, which might surprise you. Rodon or Alderete? Alderete. Better chance of a clean sheet and also DEFCON. I mean, Rodon is pretty decent at that, to be fair. They both have attacking threat. More so Rodon. He's a big threat from set pieces, but yeah, I'd pick Alderete. Calafiori worth it instead of Timber? I think Timber is a bit more secure. Calafiori is more injury prone, and Lewis Skelly has started two of the three Champions League games so far. I could see that happening in the Premier League from time to time as well. Look, don't get me wrong. I think Calafiori and Timber will both start today, but I prefer Timber if you can. Mateta or Voltemada? For this week, I prefer Voltemada, but it's a very close call. If I'm buying one now for the long term, it's very, very close, but Palace have better fixtures over the next 5. Mateta's stats are incredible, so it just depends on the context when you're looking to kind of purchase until, but probably Mateta overall. I don't see a massive difference between the two, though. Hello, Dylan. How does Xhaka look? Haven't seen him play, but I see he's good on DEFCON, although he's not getting many attacking returns. No, he's not on penalties. Xhaka is, at least at Arsenal, he played more of a box-to-box role towards the end of his career. He struggled for many seasons playing as the only holding midfielder with his lack of pace, but at Sunderland, he is an all-round midfielder, just like he was at Bayer Leverkusen. He's not going to give you many attacking returns, but if he were to do something, it's going to be from assists. He's on set pieces like corners and free kicks, and he can get DEFCON. So consistently, he can give you 3 to 4 points, but temper your expectations. He's a 5.1 million midfielder. He's not going to give you massive hauls and double-digit returns, but I think Xhaka is decent and solid. Rodon, Van der Ven, Richard, Senesi start 2. I think I answered this earlier, mate. Probably Rodon and Van der Ven. Sorry. Rodon and Richards. I would bench Van der Ven and Senesi. Jemmy says, I have 5.2 million in the bank and I'm looking to upgrade Bergvall. Maybe I can look to bring in Saka. Any other solid options? Okay, so if you got 5.2 in the bank and you can use that to upgrade Bergvall, yeah, I think Saka definitely stands out. You've already got Mbeumo, I believe, so yeah, you don't need to be in a rush to sell him. You were quite early on that train. Ismail Assar does appeal to me. He's 6.6 million, 11% ownership, great underlying stats, considering he's missed a few games this season, but yeah, I'd be very tempted to buy Saka. I do like Rice and even Eze at Arsenal, but Saka's the most explosive. He's got the highest ceiling, and against Burnley, I think he's right up there for the captaincy. You might even want to go with him for the armband over Haaland. So, yeah, I think Saka would be the one. Bench 1, Enzo, Paqueta, Sarr, Munoz, Welbeck. Probably Paqueta, but he's on penalties, so that could always go the other way. Would you bring in Rice for Rangers or leave the third spot for Saka? I think Rice is a significant upgrade on Rangers, and he's right up there in terms of points scored amongst midfielders. So I do like that move, but I'm just wondering how you would get to Saka. Are you selling Bruno Fernandes? What are you doing to make that a possibility? So let me know, and I can give you a definitive answer, but just to be clear, I do like the Rice move. It looks really nice. Is Kudus for Sarr from -4 a good idea? Long term, I think it pays off, so I would say yes. Palace and Brentford likely high scoring game. I've gone for 2-1 Palace. I was considering 3-1, maybe 3-2, so I could see that being a possibility. Between Burn and Alderete, I'd probably just go for Alderete, but there is a chance Alderete doesn't start and Sunderland play a back 5 with Ballard, Mukiele and Hirtruda. I did pronounce it properly yesterday, but yeah, I need to double check it. But yeah, I think between Burn and Alderete, decent chance of a clean sheet for both, to be fair. It's probably worth looking at my scoreline predictions because I did go for 2-0 Newcastle and I did back Everton to score a goal. Based on that, you'd probably just say start Dan Burn, to be fair, but it's not crystal clear for me. And I think Alderete has the highest ceiling, more likely to get DEFCON, probably more likely to score as well. No worries, Rye. Reece James or Van der Ven to start? I'd personally go for Reece James, but that's just my opinion. Start Chalobah or Rodon? Rodon. Well, Gyökeres is in my top 10 captains, but he hasn't scored since Gameweek 4. Burnley isn't the easiest. Oh, well, look, they are still a team to target. It is one of the more plum fixtures of the season, but they're not maybe as easy to beat, especially at Turf Moor, as they would have been a few years ago when Arsenal won 5-6-0. But I prefer Saka for the captaincy amongst Arsenal players, even Gabriel, because of clean sheet potential, DEFCON, the goal threat from set pieces. Yeah, we all know how good Gabriel is. But yeah, Gyökeres is a good option, but not my favourite. Tarkowski, Joao Pedro, Dubravka and Senesi bench boost. It's pretty good, to be fair, because of Joao Pedro. I don't expect anything from Dubravka or Senesi, so probably looking at DEFCON from the Argentine, 2 free points. Anything else is a bonus. Tarkowski against Sunderland, I think will probably be a blank, but maybe you can get DEFCON, 3-4 points. Yeah, I think overall it's decent. It's better to get it out of the way sooner rather than later. I would probably do it, but there are a few doubts of those players in terms of their fixtures and the haul potential. Joao Pedro is the one I look at, and I think he could carry your bench boost. Start one between Senesi, Xhaka, DCL, or Rodon. Not a big fan of any of them this week, to be honest with you. Xhaka is the most likely to return and give you 3-4 points, but his ceiling is arguably the lowest of those 4 players. So, to kind of do a process of elimination, I wouldn't start Senesi against Man City away. DCL is so frustrating. I can't stress how frustrating he is as an FPL asset. He is cheap, but he's going to miss some big chances. And you just have to hope that on the day you start him, he produces a return. I think Brighton will score against Leeds. Rodon can get DEFCON and score from a set piece, but that's not going to happen every week. It's a very difficult one, to be honest. I'm not a big fan of them. I'd probably say DCL, and even then, it pains me to say that. Yes, if I decide to go with Saka, it would be for Bruno. I'm in a similar boat to you. I do like Bruno this week. He has a decent record against Nottingham Forest. I think the bigger upgrade, to be honest with you, is Reinders to Rice. So I think that's probably the better move. As good as Saka is this week, and he could be the best captaincy option for Game Week 10. Is form better than fixtures? Joao Pedro's fixtures are good, but Mbeumo's form is better. Yeah, but you're comparing a forward to a midfielder. So unless you're playing FPL Draft or something, how are you going to sell Joao Pedro to get to Mbeumo? I don't think the two are related, really, unless you have to downgrade one to then get the other. What do you think of Rutter or Minter versus Leeds, mate? I prefer Minter. He's a bit more consistent. He can get DEFCON as well, but there was a part early in the season where he was getting 4 to 7 points on a regular basis. Jorginho Rutter is a decent player, but a bit inconsistent for me, and even the minutes reflect that, so I think Minter's the one. Well, you can see right now, mate, and I talked about this in my team selection, the plan is to bench boost. There is an argument to hold it out until Game Week 16. Of course, especially if there's a double Game Week, which is unlikely at this stage, which I covered in yesterday's video, but yeah, I think apart from Dubravka, the rest have decent haul potential. So Reinders at home to Bournemouth, not too shabby. I think Burn and Reinildo are pretty good defenders to have this week, and if I get 15 points, I'd be very happy with that return. Anything else would be a bonus, so yeah, that is the plan. Thank you to Ahmad for the super chat. Was going to captain Welbeck, decided to go with Timber instead. Gut feeling, one of those weeks that could earn me 100 plus points or end in tears. Maybe I just lost the plot. YOLO. Well, you still have time to change that. It's not an 11 AM deadline like we usually have on Saturday. We've still got until 1:30 in the UK, so just under 2 hours. So, yeah, you've got plenty of time to mull it over. Danny Welbeck is a decent option against Leeds. His record against them is pretty decent overall. I think he's got a few goals against them in his career, but yeah, during Timber, a bit like Gabriel, many avenues to points, less threat from set pieces, but Timber scored a brace against Leeds back in Game Week 2 anyway, so we all know what Timber can do when things click, and he has been brilliant this season, and I went to the game on Wednesday. His run for the second goal was unbelievable. He made that goal, which resulted in a shot being saved, and then Saka tapped home the rebound. So, yeah, Jurien Timber's been a machine this season, and offensively, I think he's improving. Last season, as good as Timber was, I had my reservations about his connection with Saka, the chemistry, and I also felt that White was better in terms of progressing the ball and also just connecting with Odegaard and Saka and making Arsenal click offensively. But I think Timber's improving with every single game. So, yeah, I think as a captaincy option, I wouldn't mind Timber. He's not in my top 10 list, but that's because I've got Gabriel as the so-called Arsenal defensive coverage. But you could definitely make a case for Timber being in that list. That's for sure. So Fair says bench order 1 Tarkowski, 2 Reinders, 3 Senesi. Personally, I'd swap Reinders and Tarkowski, but that's just me. I think Everton will concede against Sunderland, even if they do get a result. Tarkowski can get DEFCON. He's got set-piece threat, but yeah, I think Reinders would be first on my bench. Start Caicedo or Reinders. Very close call. If I had to pick, it's probably going to be... I'm going to say Caicedo just about. Very, very close one. -4 Mateta to Joao Pedro. No, I don't think that's worth it either way. I'm guessing you're buying Mateta, not doing Mateta to Joao Pedro, but either way, I wouldn't do that. Will Liverpool's October tragedy end up this game week, or will it continue? Well, the next two fixtures are tough for Liverpool, but then they have a nice fixture swing. It's about getting the balance right. They've had a few injury problems, but not to the extent that you would expect such a drop-off and 6 losses in 7 games. The warning signs were there when they were winning games at the beginning of the season. I said that if they don't, fix up, they're going to have problems, and I didn't expect this. I'm not going to lie to you, but I thought there would be a drop-off in terms of results, and maybe, they'd get a few draws and losses along the way. But I think Liverpool will win against Aston Villa. Then again, I backed them to win the last game, and they're just not doing it, to be fair. So, yeah, I'm going to back them to not go on a run just yet, but I think they'll improve and beat Aston Villa, maybe drop points to Man City, maybe even lose that game, and they can win a few of the next upcoming fixtures like Nottingham Forest and West Ham. Captain Saka or Haaland? Well, Haaland's top of my list, but only just. I'd be very tempted by Saka this week. Okay, so I'm going to go through different screens as well, because in turn they will answer some of the questions. So just stay patient, and yeah, your messages will be highlighted and answered. Let's start off with the FDR. Crystal Palace are now top until Game Week 15, facing Brentford, Brighton, Wolves, Man United, Burnley, and Fulham. And speaking of which, they are second in this FDR list. Brighton, Man City, and Liverpool are in the top 5. And Arsenal and Chelsea, who were top 2 over the last couple of weeks, they're now mid-table in 11th and 12th, with the Gunners, of course, a little bit lower than Chelsea there. Leeds, Sunderland, Brentford, Burnley, Aston Villa are in the bottom 5. And, of course, this changes so quickly in terms of, some team can be top 1 minute and then mid-table or near the bottom in just 1 or 2 weeks' time. With predicted points, Haaland is top yet again with 8.1 expected points. Salah, Mateta, Saka and Gabriel complete the top 5 with Bruno Fernandes, Szoboszlai, Timber, Mukiele and Cody Gakpo in the top 10. With predicted price changes, Eze, Bruno Guimaraes and Neto could rise in price, but to be honest with you, we could see more names added to this list before the deadline locks in. As for Struijk, De Kuyper, Arias, Veltman, Kirkes, Bayender, Bowen, Ben White, Harvey Elliott, Nathan Ake, they could all go down in price. The same goes for Fer Lopez, O'Brien, also... Okay, no, it's not a fantasy relevant asset anyway. Walker Peters, Sousa, Broja, Dauman, Maddison, Xavi Simons, Visser, who is still injured, and they say Reece Williams. Oh, that is a flash to the past there. Let's now compare the stats of Sarr and Enzo Fernandez, 2 brilliant options, I think, in FPL. Enzo cost 6.7, whilst Ismaila Sarr recently went up in price to 6.6, and their stats are identical. They both have 3 goals, and Sarr has played fewer minutes so far this season, and the Argentine has 2 assists to Sarr's 1. In terms of shots, it's 8 on target for Enzo and 4 for Sarr, and then you also see a difference in terms of shots overall, with Enzo having 15. Shots in the box is identical though, 10 for Enzo Fernandez and 9 for Sarr. The XG, both of them with over 3, and the expected assist is in Enzo Fernandez's favour. Big chances, also very similar, but Enzo does lead it, and of course a lot of this is to do with the extra game time. Big chance created though, they both have 2, and key passes, Ismaila Sarr has produced 6, whilst Enzo Fernandez has 11. You look at the next 3 fixtures in particular, and it's quite a close call, but I do like Chelsea facing Wolves and Burnley. That looks really appealing, but of course that London derby against Tottenham, and I think Thomas Frank can cope and adapt to the injuries, and he has been very decent so far in his Spurs tenure. I do back Chelsea to score some goals this weekend, but I don't think it'll be a routine victory at 3-point lane, as they like to call it. So that might be more difficult than they expect, but ultimately, both of them are quality FPL assets. I'm probably going to buy Ismail Assar out of the two, but if you break down the stats, I do think the Argentine has a strong case for being in your FPL teams. Let me also go to the website fpl.team to show you my different transfer plans. Vote in the poll and let me know your thoughts. Would you take a -4 hit and do Joao Pedro to Igor Thiago to then buy Saka and Ismail Assar for Bruno Fernandes, Gakpo and Joao Pedro? Or the alternative is to just do Sarr in for Gakpo, which is the same thing, but then buying Timber for Pedro Porro whilst keeping Joao Pedro and avoiding the -4 hit. That is what you see on the screen. The expected points is 63.7. I would have 0.4 million left in the bank, and the alternative would be this, of course. The expected points is lower. Of course, to be fair, this is the Minter route. Let me change this up a little bit. I don't see myself doing something like this for 2 free transfers and getting Saka and Minter as good as Brighton, or at least as good as their fixtures are for the next couple of weeks. And I think Minter's a decent asset, but I would rather have Ismail Assar. So just to illustrate how things would look like, yeah, the expected points are still lower. So it's 61.9, and it's a -4 hit. 1 million in the bank by getting Igor Thiago. I could also just chase the fixture this week and go for Danny Welbeck, but even then the expected points does drop a little bit. And with Igor Thiago, there is a clash between him and Lacroix in my starting 11. Let's now go to FPL Challenge, where this week it is called Winning Feeling. So double points are awarded for all winning goals. You can pick 1 player per club, and you have an unlimited budget. I've got Riffs in goal against Everton at home. That could definitely be changed. Gabriel away to Burnley. Mbeumo facing Nottingham Forest away. Haaland as my captain facing Bournemouth at home. That could also change, to be honest. The captaincy is not locked in for both FPL and FPL Challenge. I've got Jean-Philippe Mateta and Welbeck with home fixtures against Brentford and Leeds respectively. So I'll refer to this after the deadline has passed and we can talk about FPL Challenge in more detail. I'll also highlight the lineups. If we hit our Super Chat goal and we go on for even longer with this live stream, I will show you all the lineups for the 3 PM kickoffs in the UK. That includes Burnley, Arsenal, Fulham, Wolves, Nottingham Forest, Man United, Brighton against Leeds. So keep your eyes peeled for that as well. There's also Crystal Palace against Brentford. So I'm going to let this play out. These are my team selection graphics. So if you saw that video, you would have seen these already, but they have been updated with the latest price changes and stuff like that. But you can also see how I did in Game Week 9. I will be highlighting messages and things like that very, very soon. So keep your eyes peeled for that. I'm going to answer a few super chats that have been sent in just now. And Ahmed says, to be honest, my main reasoning was looking at the Leeds game when Timber hauled. Feels like a similar game where he can get many chances going forward. And as you said, his attacking game has been amazing. There has been a significant improvement this season in his attacking play. He's always been solid defensively, very tough to beat 1v1. But yeah, there's a reason why Timber was always considered for me as an option for my transfer, as you see on screen, to replace Pedro Porro. And it gives me, well, it doesn't give me enough funds. I would need to make a downgrade elsewhere to make that work. But I think Gakpo to Sarr is an upgrade long-term anyway. So I see where you're coming from. I do think there are a few differences, though, with Burnley being quite solid at Turf Moor. It took Liverpool until the 96th minute from a penalty to beat them. Even at Old Trafford, of course, Man United, it took them a late penalty to beat them as well. Apart from the Man City game, where Burnley were in it for 60, 70 minutes, and then it kind of tailed off towards the end, I think Burnley have been very competitive in most of the matches this season. I'm not expecting a massive scoreline for Arsenal. I've gone for 2-0 for the Gunners, and I'd be very happy with that result, to be honest. But Jurrien Timber is in the top 10 for expected points, according to Fantasy Football Hub. He's one of the best defenders in the game, and doubling up on the Arsenal defence is long overdue. You could definitely make the case that we're now going to go too late. They haven't considered a goal in October, and in some of these plum fixtures like Burnley away, they might concede. Football's unpredictable. You never know what's going to happen, but I do think Timber is an upgrade on Porro in my case, and I think he's better than most defenders in the game. So I'm going to go for the other super chat very soon. Let me just go to the analysis and show you my scoreline predictions. This could also help you as a guide in terms of which defender to start, which teams are most likely to keep a clean sheet, and ultimately with that, just wait a few minutes for the clean sheet odds. But I've gone for Brighton 1, Leeds 0, Burnley 0, Arsenal 2, Crystal Palace 2, Brentford 1, Fulham 2, Wolves 1, Nottingham Forest 0, Man United 1, Tottenham Hotspur 2, Chelsea 2, Liverpool 3, Aston Villa 2, West Ham 0, Newcastle 2, Man City 2, Bournemouth 1, and Sunderland 2, Everton 1. So next up will be the team weakness and my highlighted player. I did refer to this in one of my recent videos. I believe it was the team selection, actually, if I remember correctly. So I did talk about Brian Mbeumo, and he's a quality FPL asset. He's now 8.3 million, actually, so bear that in mind. But Brian Mbeumo is still worth consideration. He is quite template now, though, with 26% ownership. Arsenal are top of the clean sheet odds with 57%. These odds have increased since I last talked about this. Fulham are second, facing Wolves at home. Man City, Newcastle, Brighton and Crystal Palace complete the top 6. And Burnley are last with a 12% chance of keeping a clean sheet against Arsenal at Turf Moor. And finally, the top 10 captains. You could definitely include Jurrien Timber in this list. But I've gone for one Arsenal defender here in Gabriel, who makes the podium alongside his teammate Bukayo Saka. Both of them could be captain over Erling Haaland this week. I am considering it myself. Salah is 4th, facing Aston Villa at home. Mbeumo just about makes the top 5, but his record isn't great against Nottingham Forest. It's worth stating that. Gyökeres is just outside the upper echelons of the captaincy list, but I think he could be quite underrated this week. Voltemada, Enzo Fernandez, Bruno Fernandes, and Mateta complete the top 10. That is my current captaincy list. I think Timber could definitely be in that sort of top 5 as well, but I haven't included him. I think Gabriel would be enough coverage for that Arsenal defence in this list. So I'll refer back to this very soon, and also the predicted lineups. I'm going to do that in a little while, but I do want to go through this super chat first. I do appreciate all the support. So let's go to that and highlight the messages. So obviously Ahmad's question was answered, so let me know your thoughts, mate, and obviously thank you very much. Sid says, Pedro to Mateta done. Is Reinders to Minter or Van de Ven to Gay/Munoz worth it? I do like the Minter move, but I'll be honest with you, Van de Ven to Munoz is the standout. I think that's a great long-term move. Don't even think too much about, are Palace going to blank in 17 and all of this stuff? And by the way, even if that were the case, it's been said from the beginning that they wouldn't double in Gameweek 16 in the first half of the season. That would be Arsenal and Everton, but the chances are becoming more slim. So don't let that impact your FPL decisions, because you've got 6-7 weeks worth of good fixtures right in front of you, and Munoz has such a high ceiling for a defender. So my advice is to sell Van de Ven to Munoz. I think that's a great upgrade, and Reinders could still offer something in the next couple of fixtures, like Bournemouth at home this week. Should I bring in Ndiaye for Gakpo? Probably not. I like Ndiaye, but Gakpo is at home. Now, in a lot of my transfer plans, I discussed selling Gakpo, but that's going to Ismaila Sarr, and Ndiaye facing Sunderland away, I don't see that as a massive upgrade on Gakpo, to be honest, at least for this week. Minter or Ahmad to replace Kudus? Minter. Ahmad's playing as a wing-back most of the time, and United will share the goals around, but predominantly it will be Brian Mbeumo, Sesko, Cunha and Fernandes getting the goals, in my opinion, and I think Mbeumo is the most likely. Potential rotation of one of Palace's games, 4 matches in 8 days. Well, they have to rotate. They can't play, their fixed starting 11 in every single match there. Why don't you transfer your goalkeeper Sanchez to Roofs, Pope or any other goalkeeper? I really don't see that as being necessary. I've got Burn to cover Newcastle defensively anyway. And by the way, guess what with Sunderland? I've got Reinildo. It doesn't make sense to double up on Sunderland defensively. With Newcastle, there is certainly a debate to do that, but the Black Cats have poor fixtures coming up, so that is a no-go in terms of buying roofs for Sanchez. You also look at Chelsea's fixtures after Spurs. They've got Wolves at home and Burnley away. As bad as Sanchez has been this season and Chelsea aren't the most solid defensively, I don't think it's worth a goalkeeper move, to be honest. Warning about getting Triple Palace to have a fixture pile up soon, possible injuries and benchings. I think that's more of a problem in Gameweek 16-17. So far this season, they're doing very well. I know they went winless in 4 matches before their 3-0 win against Liverpool, but yeah, it's definitely worth thinking about in the future. But I think having a double up is the sweet spot. I've said this before, I wouldn't triple up personally if possible, but for those that are looking to do that, it's not a massive deal. They've got the best fixtures for the next 5-6 game weeks, so it does make sense. Hi Dylan, I want your opinion. It's not a hit. Yeah, it's still the same answer, mate. I wouldn't bring in Ndiaye for Gakpo necessarily. Not this week. You don't have Mickey Van Beckenbauer. That's a bit disrespectful, mate. Come on, Beckenbauer revolutionised the game. Would you play Van Dijk? I'm guessing Van Dijk, Van de Ven, or Senesi? Van Dijk. In the main 11, Semenyo or Reinders? Semenyo. Yeah. I sold Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeers and João Pedro. Yeah, fair enough. I mean, look, they're both capable of returning this week, but I've got major concerns about them in the long term. Liverpool 10 says, hi Dylan, love the content. Play Anderson or Caicedo? I'd personally play Caicedo. Just more avenues to points. I think Wolves will score, and Fulham have struggled against them in the last couple of seasons. I've gone for 2-1 Fulham. Anderson could get DEFCON. I would back him to start the game now, but yeah, it would be Caicedo for me. Minter or Anderson? Minter. 2 free transfers. What changes should I make? Have 3 million in the bank. I'd still sell Konsa, despite the return he got just now. So you could go to Munoz, by the way. I think Konsa to Munoz stands out to me. I would also consider Kudus to... I mean, ideally Saka, but you would need to downgrade somebody else. And that would be for a -4 hit. But maybe you could do something like Kudus to Enzo Fernandez or Brian Mbeumo. I think Kudus to Mbeumo and Konsa to Munoz is what I would do in your situation. Nash, Tim? I don't want to get cancelled or say something suspect, but maybe that's just the name. Apologies if I'm making fun of it. Raider's still stuck in Season 1, Episode 1. That is true. Lager, thank you very much for the super chat. He puts his team: Pope, Calafiori, Chalobah, Mukiele, Sarr, Saka, Semenyo, Enzo, Voltemada, Gyökeres, Haaland. On the bench, Dubravka, Senesi, Rodon, Xhaka. 2 free transfers, 1.6 in the bank. So you've got Sarr and Saka already, which I like. Your midfield is actually very well set up. I like the 4 you've got. Xhaka as a 5th midfielder and 8th attacker is absolutely fine. There is a case to have Xhaka above Rodon in the pecking order. And to be honest with you, I'd have Senesi at the bottom. I'd have Xhaka first sub, Rodon second, Senesi third. Just my opinion. It's up to you what you do with that information or opinion. I would be tempted to, once again, make a defender transfer. So, in your situation, you've got Rodon and Mukiele, 2 4 million defenders. You've got a lot of money in the bank. You could just go to Munoz, actually. Although he is 5.7 million. I'm guessing you got Mukiele and Rodon at 4, so you might be 0.1 million off from buying Daniel Munoz, which would be a shame. But I would consider that. I think that looks very solid. And you do have 2 free transfers, so you could downgrade something else to make that work. But look, despite how poor Gyökeres has been in the Premier League recently, I wouldn't sell him against Burnley. Now, if he does blank this week or looks really poor, then you could definitely make a case of selling him in Gameweek 11 against Sunderland. But yeah, I think the biggest upgrade you can make now is your defensive line, and getting Daniel Munoz for one of Mukiele, and ideally it'd be for Rodon actually. Yeah, I think that's what I would do with your setup. Yeah, of course, I know it's a joke, but just for those that, you know, do that sort of thing, you know, when Haaland had an incredible start to last season, I know that's maybe not as bad as what you said. People are saying, is he the best striker ever? Let's calm down. DCL or Semenyo? Yeah, Semenyo still. I need to transfer out 1 Arsenal player to bring in Raya as my goalkeeper. Spot isn't looking that good in my opinion. Do I get rid of Gyökeres or Eze? I don't think that's worth it. I like Raya a lot. He's probably the best goalkeeper from now until the end of the season, but is it worth selling Eze and Gyökeres, who both have a high ceiling against Burnley? I don't think so, mate. It's all about timing. So, you've already got Gabriel Wright or an Arsenal defender on top of Gyökeres and Eze, which is why you've got this situation. Stick with that Arsenal triple up, because that's a differential. Whilst most people have a double up in Arsenal's defence, or they might have, or they don't even have an Arsenal attacker like myself, you've got 2 of them, and if Saka doesn't score, I think Gyökeres and Eze are the next most likely in that team. So, no, I wouldn't do that. Not this week. Maybe in Gameweek 11 or moving forwards, but not now. Play Bentancur or Caicedo? Caicedo. Easy says Welbeck, Thiago, Kripke Jr. I think Thiago's the best one long term. Welbeck is second, Kripke Jr. third. And by the way, I do like what I've seen from Kripke Jr. Ivanosen should be back this weekend, but he'll be on the bench. Kripke Jr. will start after scoring 3 goals in the last 2 matches, but long term, Thiago's the best one. Minter or Semenyo? This week is close. I would lean towards Minter for the fixture, but Brighton are very suspect and iffy against the teams they're expected to beat. Would you start Semenyo or Richards? Semenyo. Mateta or Joao Pedro? Long term is Mateta. I still haven't used a single chip. Do you have any recommendations on when to use them? Well, it depends on your situation, mate. So if you got a nice bench this week or you feel like you can get 15 points, even 10 plus, I'd use the bench boost now. Now, with the free hit, there is a case of maybe holding onto it just in case Palace do blank in 17 and then it causes Arsenal and Everton to double in 16 and stuff like that. But that's looking less likely now, just to be honest with you. And check out my Predicted Lineups podcast from yesterday. I cover it at the intro. So at the very beginning of the video. But I'd say wildcard in 12 or 13. Free hit is either Game Week 11 or save it for later in the season. And just remember, you have to use your chips until, well, basically your cutoff point is Game Week 19. So then going into the second half of the season, you'll have all the chips again, but you will basically eat up into the ones from the first half of the season if you don't use them. So I would definitely recommend using it over the next 9 game weeks. Just try to use all of them and maximize your points potential. But yeah, triple captaincy is tougher. Maybe game week. So let's say, for example, your wildcard in 12. You can triple captain in 13 or 15 as 2 examples when Haaland faces the newly promoted teams at home. But I would prefer triple captaining him when he faces Leeds rather than Sunderland. Have you ever accidentally confirmed some transfers while tinkering on the transfer section? Maybe once upon a time. I can't remember. It definitely happened in UCL Fantasy once. And I think that was one of the only times I've taken a -4 hit in UCL Fantasy, and I did it accidentally. It didn't actually cost me massively in the end. It was a few years ago now. But yeah, in UCL Fantasy, the answer is yes. In FPL, I'm not so sure. But it depends, right? If you confirmed a lot of transfers and you've still got the wild card or free hit, you can play a booster like that and you cancel out all the hits so you don't get negatively impacted. Of course, you're wasting a chip, you could say, or using it when you don't want to, ideally, but it's better than taking massive hits. Doku or Thiago to start? Igor Thiago. John Paul says, great content as usual, Dylan. Thank you very much. Timber, Voltemada and Mateta in for Trippier, Joao Pedro and Gyökeres on a -4. Also Richards or James on the bench. I would bench Richards because I think James has the highest ceiling. As for the first question, that's a very difficult one. I'm going to say no. And I like Timber a lot. We're selling Gyökeres against Burnley for a hit. Even Trippier and Joao Pedro, I'm going to say no. I wouldn't take that -4 hit now. Maybe in Game Week 11, and by that stage you can do it for free. I wouldn't do it in Game Week 10 for a -4. Senesi or Anderson? I'd start Joachim Anderson. Better chance of a clean sheet. They can both get DEFCON, but Bournemouth have a terrible record at the Etihad, and they've got a chance of getting a result this weekend. I'm not disputing that, but I don't think they'll keep a clean sheet. Start Enzo or Xhaka? Enzo. He's far more offensive. He's on penalties. When Cole Palmer isn't on the pitch, it's between Enzo and Joao Pedro, but ultimately Enzo can play further forward. He's going to score more goals than Xhaka. I think it's very simple. Eze can get benched. Any thoughts? I think with Odegaard out of the picture for now, Eze should start, and he did obviously get the nod against against Brighton in midweek. To be honest with you, mate, I don't think Eze will get benched against Burnley, because the main alternatives to play there are Marino, who also started against Brighton. Wanyeri also played against Brighton. Yeah, Eze will play. So, look, there is a situation later in the season where Eze will get some benchings, rotation, and then get saved for other cup competitions, but Eze will not get benched against Burnley, in my opinion. Joao Pedro to Mateta or Foden to Mbeumo? I think the bigger upgrade is Foden to Mbeumo. Hi, Dylan. Good luck this week. I really want to triple captain Gabriel this week. It's something a little bit different. I haven't seen many people discuss that. Maybe captaining him, that's one thing, but triple captaining, of course, is something a little bit left field, but it doesn't mean it's wrong. He is third in my captaincy list. He could arguably be higher than that. And I think Haaland could be rivaled for the captaincy this week. And to be honest, his record against Bournemouth isn't great, especially under Iraola. He only has scored once, and that was in the FA Cup. No goals in the Premier League, no assists, I believe. He might have gotten 1 fantasy assist once when Man City beat them very heavily, but yeah. Ultimately, I think Gabriel's a decent triple captaincy option, but you've also got Haaland against Leeds in a couple of weeks. If you want to save it for that time, He's also at home, and you'd back Haaland to get a massive return. That's what I would do if I still had the triple captaincy. Start Enzo or Reinders, I'd start Enzo. In most of these situations with Enzo Fernandez involved, I'm going to say start Enzo. Just Parky puts his team. Who would you change in the lineup? -4 taken. To be honest with you, no one. I think you've ordered it in the right way. The bench order is debatable. Maybe Tosin over Senesi, but there's no guarantee Tosin even plays anyway. So I think that's fine, to be honest with you. I'm not trying to sit on the fence or just say, yeah, just do what you want. I honestly think that's the best thing to do. You've taken a -4 hit already. I don't see any of those bench players being better than those in the starting 11. So the poll is a little bit more even now, but 55% of you have gone for Timber and Sarr for 2 free transfers to replace Borro and Gakpo. As much as I would like Saka this week, it would be for a -4 hit now, since I let that go by. Relax Eye Gamer says, hi Dylan, thoughts on the front three of Haaland, Mateta and Welbeck? Yeah, that's solid enough. I prefer Igor Thiago over Welbeck as a budget forward. I think Mateta's fine. He's got the best underlying stats, bar Haaland. So that front three is still really good. I would not be selling Welbeck now against Leeds, so definitely keep what you've got for now and reassess in a couple of weeks' time. I have 4 free transfers. Is it worth a transfer for Bruno to Mbeumo? Only if you're using that to fund other moves. So, if I was wildcarding, I'd buy Mbeumo. I'm not going to deny that. He's in better form. He's more likely to score from open play. But Bruno Fernandes is still on penalties, which Ruben Amorim talked about after his penalty miss very recently. And Bruno can get DEFCON. He's got a lot of avenues to points. He'll get more assists. He's on set pieces. And this could be the week. I'm not saying it will be, but it's possible that Bruno is the one who gets the return for United and Mbeumo blanks. Then it shifts the other way in game week 11 or 12, but it does seem a bit sideways from that perspective. I would only do it to fund other moves. -8 for Joao Pedro to Mateta and Kudus to Mbeumo. I'll be honest, mate. I would just do Kudus to Mbeumo for a -4 and keep Joao Pedro for another week or two, ideally. By the way, I'm not putting people off. I'm just putting the information out there. I'm offering my opinion and also highlighting some stats. You do with the information what you want and then make your transfers. But Mateta has never scored or assisted against Brentford in his career. That could definitely change this week with the amount of chances Palace are creating. I think Mateta could score this weekend, but I don't think it's worth taking hits to sell a Joao Pedro, as bad as he's been, to Mateta this week. That's my opinion. Anderson, Dubravka, Reinders, Estev, good enough for bench boost? Well, you've got 2 Burnley players against Arsenal, and I think the Gunners will score. Anderson against Wolves, good fixture on paper. I personally think Wolves will score. Reinders has been poor this season, or very inconsistent from an FPL perspective. He's okay, but Bournemouth are obviously a very good side, one of the best in the Premier League right now. So I would probably say no. I think you could have a better bench boost based on your team, your 50-man squad and the fixtures you've got in later game weeks. And what I'd recommend to you is go to a website like FPL.team, visualize future game weeks and see when the bench boost looks best. Now, ideally, you'd get rid of it as soon as possible. I've said that many times, but I don't like that bench boost, if I'm being completely honest. So yeah, thank you to everyone for the super chats. We did hit our goal and we've got another hour left. So before I continue with the questions, and like I said before, members will be prioritized. That's one of the perks of being a member or patron. I'm going to go through the predicted lineups and then hopefully in, let's say, 30-40 minutes, I'll start locking in my transfers. But I want to show you the updates to what I talked about in yesterday's podcast. And Arsenal are first here. And I believe Mosquera will start over Saliba. But if the Frenchman is fit enough, then of course he is first choice to partner Gabriel in central defence. David Raya in goal goes without saying, with Timber and Calafiori as the fullbacks. Zubamendi, Eze and Rice is my predicted Arsenal midfield, with Saka and Trossard on the wings and Victor Gyökeres up front. Now, there have been changes to the FDR, which I've also reflected with the graphics, and I've updated them over the past 12 to 14 hours. So Sunderland is now classed as a difficult fixture away from home, but Burnley is up next, of course. There's Sunderland, and after the international break, there's the North London derby against Tottenham at home and Chelsea away for the Gunners. And for those that are wondering, what are the kind of scores on the top right-hand corner of the screen? Those are my correct predictions. So out of 99 so far this season, I got 91 correct for Arsenal and 84 for Aston Villa, who face Liverpool away next, followed by Bournemouth at home, Leeds away, and Wolves at home. I think it'll be Emi Martinez in goal, Cash and Luka Dean as the fullbacks, Konsa and Pau Torres in central defence, Kamara and Onana in the midfield, with Guesson and McGinn on the wings, and Morgan Rogers just behind Ollie Watkins. I also talked about the press conference updates in yesterday's video, not just from Friday, Thursday, and throughout the week in the build-up to Carabao Cup matches, but also from a week or two ago in terms of the latest updates on certain injuries. But with Bournemouth, my main dilemma is actually in central defence, whether it'll be Diakite or I'll call him Milo. Milo? I'll just call him Milo. Difficult name to pronounce. But I've got Petrovic in goal, Jimenez and Truffert as the fullbacks, Scott, Adams, Tavernier, Semenyo, Clivert, and Krupi Jr. completing this Cherries 11. They face Man City and Aston Villa away next, followed by West Ham at home and Sunderland away. Moving on to Brentford, they have found this 4-2-3-1 winning formula with Keller in goal, Coyote and Ajer as the fullbacks, but Hickey is available, so there is a chance of a change in that position. Collins and Vandenberg in the defence. Yarmouk is no longer yellow flagged, and he should start alongside Jordan Henderson. Dango Ouattara and Shada as the wingers, with Damsgaard just behind the very appealing Igor Thiago up front. With Brighton, my main concern is De Kuyper or Kadioglu. I have gone for De Kuyper this time round, but maybe Twister Parky will offer you a better opinion on the Seagulls. I've got Verbruggen in goal, Vifa, Van Heck, Dunk, Beliba, Ayari, Minter, Gomez, Jorginho Rota, and Danny Welbeck. It's Leeds at home next, followed by Crystal Palace away, Brentford at home, and Nottingham Forest away. The next team is Burnley, and they could change to a back five this time round, but I've got a few reservations about this because Ogachukwu has been playing quite well recently, and he is a midfielder by trade in central areas. He has never really played on the wings, but could Burnley maybe shift to a 5-3-2 and play Lau Foster up front with Fleming, or even Jaden Anthony in a sort of floating winger position to play a 5-3-1-1 formation? That's also a possibility, and in recent matches where Burnley have gotten 2 consecutive victories, they have played a 4-2-3-1, so that is still a possibility there for them. And in the big games, they have played a back five. They've lost them, but they've been very competitive in those matches. But if they go for a back five, it'll be Dubravka in goal, Walker, Laurent, Twanzebe, Esteve, and Hartman, and Ekdal is another possibility in central defence. Bryn Larson and Jaden Anthony will start if they want to go for natural wingers, with Colin and Florentino Luis poised to start, but I still have reservations about Ogachukwu, and he could still get the nod for the Clarets, and Fleming should start up front after scoring a brace against Wolves. After Arsenal, it's West Ham away, Chelsea at home, and Brentford away. The next team is Chelsea. I've got a few question marks about Achimpong versus the other defenders. We could see Fofana start. He got a full rest in that 4-3 win against Wolves in midweek. Robert Sanchez went down in price overnight to 4.8 million. Gusto and Cucurella should start as the fullbacks, but Chelsea could also play James as the right back and then have Caicedo and Enzo as the holding midfielders, or even Andre Santos. But I've gone for this setup with James, Caicedo, and Enzo Fernandez further forward, Neto and Garnacho on the wings, with Esteval being used as a super sub, and Joao Pedro up front. He now costs 7.4 million in FPL. After Tottenham away, it's Wolves at home and Burnley away, followed by Arsenal at home for the Blues. With Crystal Palace, it's 97 correct out of 99. Wharton is out due to illness, so it'll be Hughes and Kamada in central midfield, with Henderson, Lacroix, Richards, Gay, Mitchell and Munoz as the 5 defenders, Ismail Assar, Yeremy Pino and Jean-Philippe Mateta up front. There are 2 home games against Brentford and Brighton, followed by Wolves away and Man United at home. With Everton, I've had a very successful rate as well, with 93 correct predictions there. Pickford, O'Brien, Tarkovsky, Keane, Mikalenko, Idrissa Gana Gay and Ghana, in Dye, Grealish, Dewsbury Hall, and probably Beto up front. The next 4 fixtures don't look particularly great. Fulham at home should be a green, by the way, according to the recent FDR updates by the Fantasy Premier League website. With Fulham, they are facing Wolves at home next. They've also got Sunderland at home, with Everton and Tottenham away in between. Leno should start in goal, with Tete, Joachim Andersen, Bassi, and Sessegnon, Sandenberg and Lukic in the midfield, Wilson and Iwobi on the wings, and King just behind Rodrigo Muniz, who should return this weekend, according to Marco Silva in yesterday's press conference. Leeds United is another successful team in terms of predicting their starting 11. Perry in goal, Bogle, Rodon, Biol, and Goodmanson, with Ampadu, Longstaff, and probably Tanaka, but don't rule out Stack being reintroduced in that midfield to face Brighton away. Aronson and Okafor on the wings, and Calvert-Lewin up front. There is also Nottingham Forest away, Aston Villa at home, and Man City away over the next 4 game weeks. And with Liverpool, the Premier League champions, I've got a 90 correct, with Mamardashvili set to start in goal again, Bradley and Robertson as the fullbacks, Kanate and Van Dijk in central defence, and Gravenberch will return, as Arne Slot talked about in yesterday's press conference, but Harvey Elliott and Isak are 99.9% out of the squad for this weekend. Wirtz, Salah, Gakpo and Ekitike is the likely attacking line for Liverpool, who face Aston Villa and Man City next, but then there's a clear fixture swing in Game Week 12, facing Nottingham Forest at home and West Ham away. We're now on to Manchester City, who have some tough fixtures over the next 3 game weeks, and then a nice fixture swing by Game Week 13, which is my favourite week to triple captain, if you still have that chip, facing Leeds at home. Donnarumma, Mateus Nunes, Ruben Dias, Gavardio and O'Reilly is my predicted 11 at the moment, or predicted defensive line, but in recent matches we have seen Ruben Dias with Stones and then Gavardio as the left back, but I think this is more of a winning formula for Manchester City, with Nico Gonzalez in the midfield, Bernardo and Doku on the wings, with Savio being another possibility in those positions, Reinders and Foden just behind Erling Haaland, who went up in price yet again. And on the other side of Manchester, there is Man United, with Lamins in goal, Yoro, De Ligt and Shaw. I think Casemiro will partner Bruno Fernandes again, with Amad Diallo and Dallo as the wing-backs, Mbumo, Cunha and Benjamin Sesko up front. Their fixtures are quite decent, facing Nottingham Forest and Tottenham away, then Everton at home and Crystal Palace away. With Newcastle, my main concern is in central defence, whether it'll be Fabian Schär or Sven Botman. My personal take on it is that Schär will start this game and Botman will play in the Champions League, but I've got Pope in goal, Trippier and Byrne as the fullbacks, and the latter did go up in price overnight. Chow has been brilliant for the Toonami, with Tonali, Bruno Guimaraes and Joelinton in the midfield. Jacob Murphy should start here, and Elanga in the Champions League, whilst Anthony Gordon and Voltemada are nailed on for now. With Nottingham Forest, I've got an 89 correct prediction so far this season. Sells in goal, Savona and Nico Williams as the fullbacks, Milenkovic and Murillo in central defence, Anderson and Douglas Luiz in the midfield, Ndoye and Hudson-Odoi on the wings, and Gibbs-White just behind Igor Jesus. There is Man United and Leeds at home next, followed by Liverpool away and another home fixture against Brighton. Now with Sunderland, it's either Alderete or Gertruida. I need to double check the pronunciation again. It's not easy pronouncing those names, but Roofs in goal, Hume and Reinildo Mandava as the wing-backs, Mukiele, Ballard and Alderete, who is still yellow flagged because of concussion protocols, Traore and Lafay as the wingers, Xhaka and Siddiqui in the midfield, and Isidore up front. But after Everton, there is a negative fixture swing against Sunderland, facing Arsenal at home, Fulham away, and Bournemouth at the Stadium of Light. We're now approaching the end of this segment with Tottenham Hotspur, who have some very tough fixtures soon. Fulham at home looks the most appealing over the next 4, but you look at Chelsea and Man United at home, followed by Arsenal away. That looks pretty ugly, with Vicario in goal, Borro, Romero, who is now back in that 50-man squad, or in the overall squad, I should say. It's not FPL. Van der Ven and Jed Spence, Paulinho and Bentancur in the midfield, Kudus, Xavi Simons and Odobert just behind Colin Muani, but Spurs could shift to a back 5 and start Danso alongside Romero and Van der Ven. Now with West Ham, to be quite honest with you, I don't know what they're playing at in recent matches. Nuno is playing Wan-Bissaka and Walker Peters at the same time and shifting one to the left-hand side. It's all a bit kind of very, very confusing, but I believe West Ham will start building something more stable and have Areola in goal, Wan-Bissaka and Diouf as the fullbacks, Todibo and Kilman in the defence, Magassa and Fernandes with Paqueta in those midfield areas. It could be a 4-1-4-1 or a 4-3-3, but Bowen, Somerville and Wilson should start against Newcastle at home. Then it's Burnley at home, Bournemouth away, and then Liverpool at the London Stadium. The last team is Wolves, and by far the worst in terms of my predictions. 77 correct out of 99, but it has improved in recent weeks with Johnston in goal, and I have made one change at right back with Chichawa starting in that position, Hugo Bueno on the left, despite Wolf getting 2 assists against Chelsea in midweek, Santiago Bueno and Krejci, in central defence, Andre, Menetzi and Joao Gomez in the midfield, Arias, Hwang Hee-chan and Strand Larsen up front. It's Fulham and Chelsea away next, so 2 trips to West London, followed by Crystal Palace at home and Aston Villa away. Hopefully this has helped you in terms of providing team news, injury updates, highlighting suspensions and stuff like that. I did it in yesterday's video and also highlighted blank Gameweek 17 and what that would mean for double Gameweek 16 and also what the situation is right now. And I also talked about all the possible suspensions and those walking the tightrope, those players on 3 or 4 yellow cards. If a player gets 5 bookings in the first 19 Gameweeks of the season, they will miss a game because of a ban. So be very mindful about that. Daniel Munoz, for example, is on 3 yellow cards, so 2 more before Gameweek 19, and he will be suspended for a Premier League match. Hey Dylan, start Dubravka or Petrovic. Not a big fan of either this week, but I would probably say Dubravka. Now, you could argue Man City will have more shots. If that's the way you see it, then, you know, I personally think both of them will blank and concede goals, but then it maybe comes down to saves potential. But I think Dubravka is the more likely to keep a clean sheet. I know the bottom of the clean sheet odds, which I showed you earlier, but that's just kind of my take. I think Man City will score against Bournemouth at the Etihad. On free hit, Welbeck, captain, Saka, vice. Very, very bold and different, and honestly, Welbeck could be quite underrated this week. He's in decent form. I think Saka's a brilliant option. He's in my top 2. He could arguably be first. But yeah, I think you've gone for something a little bit different. Erling Haaland could be rival this week, and I'm not entirely settled on him as my captain. I think Kadioglu starts, then it's Vifa or De Kuiper. Yeah, that is true. The thing is, I had Kadioglu in my original predicted lineup, but in recent matches, I haven't seen him play at left back. He's been playing as a right winger, as a right back. We could see that, though, what you said. So maybe Kadioglu as the right back and then De Kuiper on the left. Obviously, Matoma being a massive doubt for this weekend, probably a bit too soon for him, doesn't help things, but yeah, I think that's fair to say. Captain who? Gabriel, Saka, Haaland. Well, Haaland's top of my list, but only just. I think Gabriel and Saka are great options. I put Saka second and Gabriel third. If I had Saka, I'd be very tempted to put the armband on him this week. What about Senesi to Munoz? I still like Senesi long term, but there has been a drop-off in terms of DEFCON, clean sheets and points potential. The next 2 fixtures aren't great for Bournemouth, but then they've got some nice games on paper. But I'd say yes, I think Munoz is an upgrade right now. Play Chalobah or Goodmanson. I don't think either keep a clean sheet, but I would rather go for Goodmanson, I think. If it's James, it's a bit different because he's got a high ceiling. Now, Chalobah could score a set piece against Tottenham, but I think Spurs have been better from those situations. And if anything, I think Spurs are more likely to score from a set piece than Chelsea, but both of them have plenty of goals from those situations this season. Best defence to get in, which isn't Arsenal Palace. Bit of an awkward one. I'm actually struggling myself. Another kind of transfer plan I was thinking of to buy Saka and Sarr is to downgrade Borja to a 5.3 defender or below. And I'm looking at the list and I'm not really that thrilled with the options because some of them would be Newcastle, Sunderland. I've already got Burn and Reinildo Mandava. I mean, Man United, they could keep a clean sheet against Forest, but is it worth going for a defender now? I'm not so sure. So I'll be honest, the options are uninspiring for the most part. I think Gabriel, Timber, Munoz are the standout defenders. Then you can go for budget options like Rodon, Mukiele as your 5th defender. And after that, it can be anyone's game. So to be honest with you, there's no standout in Game Week 10. Burn and Senesi out for Munoz and Truffert. Why would you sell Burn for Truffert? I don't get that. I mean, if you're backing Bournemouth to keep a clean sheet or beat City, then fair enough. But I personally don't see it that way. I think they'll concede. So Senesi out for Munoz. I'm guessing you're doing it to fund the other move because you can't afford Senesi to Munoz, but I don't think that's worth it. Start 1, Richards, Reinders, Paqueta. I would start Reinders. Do I take a -4 hit to replace Van Dijk with Gabriel? I think long term it pays off, but Van Dijk can get DEFCON. Liverpool have a nice fixture swing soon. If they get things right, Van Dijk is still a quality option, but he has dipped in recent weeks. I think Gabriel's the best defender. Arsenal have by far the best defence in the league, so I think it's worth it. We want to see Watson start. Yeah, I've heard a few things about him. He did cross my mind to start on the left-hand side, but yeah, it's difficult with Brighton sometimes. My success rate is decent, but not as good as others. I think they're difficult to predict at times. ¿Qué tal, Lilan? Minta or Ndai? Para esta jornada creo que Minta es mejor. Hi Dylan, should I get Cucurella or Van der Ven? Well, start. I prefer Chelsea a little bit more, so probably Cucurella. Buy Anderson or Richards. I'd rather get Richards, but bear in mind, you might also want Munoz, and I wouldn't double up on Palace defensively if it were me. If you're happy to do that, then fair enough, but yeah. In isolation, I prefer Richards. Palace have a better defense. They've got the best fixtures until Gameweek 17, and up until Gameweek 15-16, so yeah, Richards for me. Hi, bench one of Minter, Semenyo, Mukiele. I would bench Mukiele. Lowest ceiling, in my opinion. And I do think Everton will score. Welcome, Grandpa. Hi, Dylan. Which four should I start? Semenyo, Mbeumo, Ndai, Zubimendi, Reinders. I would start Mbeumo, Semenyo, Ndai, and I'd personally go for Reinders. Zubimendi has the better fixture. He's a quality player, but in terms of the chances of scoring, I know he's got 2 goals this season. I still think Reinders is more likely, especially if he plays further forward, and that would be the case if Nico Gonzalez gets the nod. So I would bench Zubimendi. As much as I rate him, not so much as an FPL asset. He is actually quite high in terms of FPL points amongst midfielders, but I think that will change over the coming months. Would you upgrade Stack or DCL first, or both for a -4? It depends who you can get to, mate. So if you can do Stack to Sarr, Enzo Fernandez, or something like that, that looks really appealing, but so does DCL to Thiago. So just let me know your budget, and then I can give you a definitive answer, because that is very important. Not just who you're selling, but the quality of the replacement. Sell Enzo for Mbeumo? I probably wouldn't, actually. I like Enzo Fernandez against Tottenham away, Wolves at home, and Burnley away. Play Xhaka or Ndai? Ndai. Burn and Senesi out, covered, mate. Joao Pedro to Welbeck, Foden to Mbeumo, Kudus to Okafor, Diouf to Gabriel for -4. All this to afford Mbeumo Gabriel. I mean, Okafor is my favourite Leeds attacker, but I'm not so sure about buying him in, to be honest with you. Maybe Xhaka, just as an 8th attacker, 5th midfielder, giving you DEFCON and 3-4 points consistently. That could be an option for you. Maybe Minter, if you can afford it, over Okafor would be my preference, actually. Ideally, you'd get Sarr for Kudus. If you could do that, I 100% recommend it. But yeah, if it was me, to fund Mbeumo and Gabriel, I would maybe say Joao Pedro to Igor Thiago. And if that gives you enough funds to do Kudus to Sarr, yeah, that would be my preference. But ultimately, Okafor's decent, but not my favourite midfielder, even at that sort of budget price range. Hey, Dylan, start Rangers or Ndai for Everton? Ndai. I mean, you can see my starting 11 right now. I'm bench boosting anyway, unless I have a change of heart in the last hour or so. But yeah, I've got Ndai in the starting 11, Rangers on the bench. Hey, Dylan, Sarr or Gordon for this weekend? Look, Gordon's been terrible this season in the Premier League, but he's got 4 goals in the Champions League, and he's facing West Ham away next. So he can definitely haul, but I prefer Sarr. Hi, will you do a -4 to Joao Pedro, Doku out, Mbeumo, Isidore in? Not really. Also, if Isidore looks decent this week against Everton, but then it's Arsenal at home, and the fixtures aren't great over the next 4, so it's not a good time to bring in Isidore. -8 to bring in Cunha and Igor. I'll be honest, I don't like Cunha over Mbeumo. He's a quality player, scored a brilliant goal against Brighton, but the best United asset in the midfield is Mbeumo. So as much as you're getting Igor Thiago with the -8, I'm just not so sure if you're just chasing points and stuff like that. I think it's not necessary to take the -4 or the -8. Anderson or Munoz? Munoz, yeah. Bench Van der Ven or Dewsbury Hall? Very close one. I would probably bench Van der Ven. I think both of them will blank, though, in my personal view. Hopefully I'm wrong and Dewsbury Hall does well for you, but that's just my opinion. Captain who? Covered. Bench 1, Thiago, Enzo or Minter? That's a very difficult one. Reluctantly, I'd say Igor Thiago, but he's on penalties, and he could still give you 5-6 points in a bad day. Reinildo to Timber, Gakpo to Rice with bench boost. Gabriel, Munoz, Burn, Tarkovsky, Semenyo, Ndai, Sarr, Reinders. I'll be honest, mate, I'd rather sell Tarkovsky than Reinildo. I think Sunderland are more likely to win the game. They've got the better chance of a clean sheet as a result, and Reinildo could be saved as your 5th defender. You just bench him after game week 10, whilst with Tarkovsky, he's too expensive for what he's offering. So I'd sell Tarkovsky instead of Reinildo Mandava, Timber's absolutely fine to bring in. That looks really good. And then Declan Rice, solid option. But also, it gives you the possibility of keeping Gakpo, who is still solid against Aston Villa at home, by the way. And Liverpool have nice fixtures from Game Week 12 onwards. So just consider that as an alternative. Keeping Reinildo, maybe even Gakpo, but doing Tarkowski to Timber. Buy Lacroix or Richards? Probably Richards. And should I do Van der Ven or Senesi to Anderson? Long term, I prefer Senesi, so I'd sell Van der Ven. Hi, what do you think of my team? I mean, you've got some great picks in there, but I'll be honest, there are a few that I would question, like Longstaff and Grealish. They're not players I'd like to start week in, week out. Calvert-Lewin as well. Look, he's a budget forward. I'm not going to rip into him, but Igor Thiago and Welbeck are far better options at that, or a similar price point. They are more expensive, to be fair, but yeah, I think those players could be sold. You've also got triple up in Leeds, who have been decent this season, but they're not worth tripling up on. I think 1 or 2 is enough, in my opinion. Do I start Caicedo over Anderson Mukiele? I would probably start him over Anderson. Bowen out for Voltemada or Mateta? Probably Mateta. But like I said before, he has never scored or assisted against Brentford. That could change this weekend, but just putting it out there. I would start Reinders there. Anything 67-97. ¿Qué tal, Dylan? Minta or Endai? Ya respondí a esta pregunta. Para mí, Minta. Bowen to Mateta, Dylan. I think long-term it's worth it. But I've said this before. I don't see massive differences between these forwards. Mateta scored a hat-trick against Bournemouth, but over the course of the season, they're still quite similar in terms of FPL points scored, points per game. But the big difference would be the underlying numbers, and Palace have superior fixtures long-term. So that's why I would recommend going for Mateta. But for Game Week 10 and 11, I don't think you need to be in a rush to sell Bowen, particularly for some people asking about selling him for a -4 or -8. I don't think that's really worth it. I got Saliba last week on wildcard. Should I just get rid of him? Well, in my transfer tips, I talked about Saliba being a sell. Quality player, but he doesn't get enough goals or assists. He's not even getting shots at all. Yeah, I would sell him. Out of those 2 players, I'd bring in Munoz. Hi, Dylan. Start Sells or Petrovic? Sells. Better chance of a clean sheet. Ultimately, I think both of them will concede, but I went for 1-0 United and 2-1 City. But yeah, I think Forest have the better chance of a clean sheet at home with Sean Dyche, and United are still inconsistent. Matthew says, who should I start? Rodon, Reece James or Senesi? Reece James. Reinders or Esteval? Reinders. Bench 2 of Senesi, Gay, Van der Ven, Burn, Rodon, Kudus, Semenyo, Joao Pedro. Okay, so for this question, I would bench Senesi. And probably Van der Ven. It's between him and Rodon. But for the rest, I'd definitely start. Hey, please help. Would you do Gakpo to Eze Trossard? If so, which one? Look, both of those players from Arsenal are capable of a massive return this week, and I think Eze long-term would be my preference, but I'd probably keep Gakpo for this week. The only reason I'm looking to sell him is because I can use that as a cash cow to do something like Borra to Timber, or I was talking about Bruno Fernandes to Saka recently. I can't do that now without taking a -4 hit, but I think you don't need to sell Gakpo just yet. He is more of a sell than a hold, I think, long-term, but Liverpool have nice fixtures as well. They are at home next against Villa. I think Gakpo will start, so he's not like an absolute must-sell, and Eze and Trossard are massively better. I don't really see it that way, but yeah, long-term, if I was wildcarding and I had to pick between those 3 players, I'd pick Eze, actually. So from that perspective, I'd go for Eze, but I don't think you need to sell Gakpo. Isidore or Reinders? This week, it'd be Isidore, but I have to stress this. I wouldn't be buying in Isidore with the upcoming fixtures in general. I would start Enzo Fernandez, mate. He is way better than Anderson, whether it's Elliot Anderson or Joachim Anderson, which I believe you spelled correctly. Sarr and Welbeck or Minter and Mateta on free hit, and should I have Semenyo in the free hit team? Not necessarily. I mean, Semenyo's been brilliant this season, but Man City have a brilliant record against Bournemouth, and there are better midfielders on paper this week. Even Gakpo, I would argue. I would also say Sarr, Enzo Fernandez, Saka, Eze, Trossard, Minter. But that's based on the fixture. Semenyo is fixture-proof anyway. He can do well. I think it's a bit awkward to free it this week, but everyone's situation is different. Maybe it's the right call for your situation. Start Mukiele or Richards? Mukiele. I have one free transfer. Should I do 1, Bruno to Mbumo and Joao Pedro to Voltemada for a -4? 2, Joao Pedro to Welbeck. 3, roll this week with Gyökeres, Joao Pedro, Haaland frontline. I would probably do number 3. That's just my opinion. And Joao Pedro has Tottenham away, Wolves at home, and Burnley away. I would be staggered if he went those 3 matches without any returns. I think he can get some big returns, actually. Maybe returning 2 of the 3, but he's very inconsistent over the course of his Premier League career. He's still young and learning and, trying to get that consistency. But, yeah, I think the next 3 look good for Chelsea attackers. Want to go for a differential captain this week? Can't decide between Saka, Gabriel, and Voltemada. Saka for me. Start Van de Ven or Mukiele. Mukiele. Mbumo's a good short-term punt before he goes to AFCON next month. It's not a big deal, though. We've got 5 free transfers in Gameweek 16, so I wouldn't look too much into AFCON. And some people have a misconception about certain players like Kudus and Semenyo. They will stay with their clubs because Ghana haven't qualified for AFCON. So be very mindful about that. Of course, with Ndai and all these other players like Mbumo, they are going to travel with their countries. They will participate in AFCON, but we've got 5 free transfers in 16. I wouldn't be worrying too much. Jaxo says, thank you for replying. Just have a triple Leeds because I'm a Leeds fan. That's fair enough. I just think there are areas to improve, and I think selling at least one of Stack or Calvert-Lewin is the way to do it. And ultimately, Leeds have done very well this season. They've been very competitive in the vast majority of their games, and yeah, hopefully you stay up. I wish you the best. Would you consider King over Caicedo? Consider it maybe, but I'd probably just go for Caicedo. Should I bench boost Petrovic, Bowen, Mukiele, Anthony? I like Bowen and Mukiele for that bench boost, not so much Petrovic and Anthony. And it's not worth doing a -4 to Xhaka. I like Xhaka as an option. He's not worth taking a hit for, just to put it out there. So I think it's a decent bench boost. Once again, I have to tell people, if you're kind of like unsure about when to bench boost, the best thing you can do is go to fpl.team or a website that allows you to visualize future game weeks, see how your team lines up every week, the fixtures, and if you're happy with one week over the other for that chip. But in my situation, I'm quite happy to use it now, get rid of it, and yeah, I think 2 of those players could give you 10, 15 points alone. The other 2, not so much, but things happen in football, right? You can get a surprise. Maybe in the end, it's one of Anthony or Petrovic who gets some massive return and carries your bench boost. You never know, but overall, I'd say yes. And don't take the -4 for Xhaka. Well, the lineups are always out 1 hour, 15 minutes before the games start. So we've got games happening at 3 p.m. So at 1:45, so in 1 hour, 5 minutes time, we will get the lineups. Hey, Dylan, please help. I covered this question, mate. Thank you very much. Hallo puts his team, free transfer, 0.1 in the bank. Bench boost this game week or next. So Anderson to Mukiele, Reinders to Longstaff. I'm not so sure about Reinders to Longstaff, to be honest, mate. I don't like Reinders too much in FPL now. That goes without saying. I think he's a sell. But ideally, I'd be selling him to, Sarr, Enzo Fernandez, these sorts of players. Of course, you might need that sort of budget attacker. And then having someone like Xhaka could definitely do the job. Or Longstaff, as you say. But he's not someone you want to start consistently. Bench boost this week or the next? I'd probably say this week. I think your bench, apart from Senesi and Dubravka, I think the rest looks very good. Your 50-man squad in general. So I'd probably bench boost now. But once again, go to FPL.team, visualize the next week, compare the fixtures side by side, and then you might have a gut feeling about which one's better. You might disagree with my assessment and evaluation, and in the end, you decide to go for Game Week 11. But ultimately, I would try to play it either in Game Week 10 or 11. My preference is Game Week 10. Should I substitute Caicedo or Ndai for Van de Ven? Not for me. I'd start the players you're starting in that situation. You could make a case for starting Reinders, though. I would say that, but ultimately, I do agree with your starting 11 for the most part. And yeah, Van de Ven, Senesi on the bench is the right call, in my opinion. But maybe consider Reinders over Caicedo. Maybe. I just think he's got a better chance of scoring in Game Week 10. Who should I start? Isidore or Reinders? As covered earlier, I'd start Isidore. Pope or Roofs for this game week? Nick Pope. I did say 2-0 Newcastle and 2-1 Sunderland in my predictions, so Nick Pope by default. Free Arsenal at the back. Well, look, Saka's had a few injury problems recently. He obviously had that 3-month layout from December onwards, but typically he'll be yellow flagged and doubtful for the next game. He might miss one match, but he has been consistently available for years, but he has been overplayed. With Arsenal squad depth now, he is being taken off earlier. He didn't feel quite right because of illness against Palace. He made the game. He was able to start, but he didn't play particularly well. But I think he's in good condition now. Hopefully he stays fit, and I think he's a great option. I would keep an Arsenal spot available for an attacker. That's my opinion, and I think Saka's the best one. I like Declan Rice for the value. Victor Gyökeres will come good in my opinion, but triple Arsenal at the back is fine. It's also viable. I've said this before. I'm warming up to it, and how can't you after not conceding a goal in a fucking month, you know, across all competitions? But yeah, I'm quite happy with a double up and then having one attacker. But yeah, triple Arsenal is fine. I just prefer Saka. Start for Stack or Reinders? I'd rather sell Stack, who might not even start this week. It could be Tanaka, Ampadu, and Longstaff again. But Reinders is still a sell. Gyökeres or Joao Pedro? For this week, Gyökeres. Hi Dylan, I'm sticking to my guns with Pedro and Bowen as I really like their fixtures in Gameweek 11, particularly, but not so much this week. No, I don't think it's a mistake, and once again, let's look at the alternatives. Apart from Haaland, who is really standing out in the forward line? Voldemar has been brilliant, points per game, and also the consistency, but Mateta, one hat-trick against Bournemouth, really impressive, but then in the other games he's been very annoying and very frustrating. Great numbers in terms of XG, big chances and stuff like that, but he's not being consistent enough. So I don't think you should be in a rush to sell these players. The same goes for Victor Gyökeres as well. Play Senesi or Van der Ven? Van der Ven. I covered your question earlier, OMNZW. My preference is buying Richards. And as for your last question, I can't stress enough, I'd sell Van der Ven. I don't know how many times I need to say it. Do you think Achimpong will continue to get minutes in Chelsea's defence? He will get minutes, but will he start consistently? It's not a guarantee. And one of my doubts in my Chelsea predicted lineup is actually Achimpong. We could see Fofana start. He got a full rest in midweek against Wolves, whilst Achimpong played. And I would expect most of those players who featured against Wolves to not start the game against Tottenham. Start Caicedo or Ndai? I'd start Ndai. Not a big difference though. Bench Van der Ven or Dewsbury Hall? As covered earlier, I would bench Van der Ven. Not much difference as well. Do I sell Reinders to Xhaka or Gyökeres to Voldemar in order to fund Joao Pedro to Mateta? I wouldn't be selling Gyökeres this week though against Burnley. So probably Reinders to Xhaka, but I do think Reinders is better than Xhaka this week. So I just think you're forcing in Mateta. Long term, he is better than Joao Pedro. I'm not disputing that, but for the next 2-3 weeks, I don't see as a massive upgrade personally. Best under 5 million forward, in your opinion? Well, it's definitely Krupi Jr. for me. There's no debate. But if Anderson's back, Krupi Jr. will continue to start, but he's not safe in the long term. With Mark Guiu, he could start against Tottenham, but I think Krupi Jr. is far superior. See ya, Dylan. Good luck. I have my exams. All the best with that. Time to make changes, folks. 45 to go. Yes. My plan was to do it in the next 15-20 minutes anyway. And I think I've got my mind set on my transfers. Sell Kudus or Salah for Mbumo? I'd rather sell Kudus. With Salah, he's not worth the money, but against Villa, even Man City and the upcoming fixtures, he could do well. Hey Dylan, would you do Cucurella to Gabriel for a hit? Long term, I think it pays off. Just bear in mind that Chelsea play Wolves at home and Burnley away over the next 3, and they've had a lot of joy against Tottenham over the years. Hi Dylan, hope you're well. Start Tarkowski or Joachim Andersen? I think both of them will concede. They can get DEFCON, but not a massive fan. Also, would you do Tarkowski and Joao Pedro to Richards and Mateta for a -4? Probably not. I like Mateta, and I think Richards is fine as a 4.5 million option. If it was Munoz, I'd be tempted to say yes because of his high ceiling, but probably not. As for the starting question, probably Joachim Andersen, but there's not much in it. Have free transfers. Should I do Pedro to Mateta? Should I upgrade Goodmanson or just play Senesi? Well, you don't necessarily need to upgrade Goodmanson. You can just keep him as your 5th defender, right? But I would try to make an upgrade in your defensive line and buy someone like Munoz if you can. So that could be one of Senesi or Anderson making way instead, to be quite honest with you. But I think with Fulham's upcoming fixtures, you don't sell Anderson. He is back, and I think he will start this weekend in the 3 p.m. kickoff coming up very soon. But yeah, one of Goodmanson or Senesi, I think you could sell them and upgrade. I wouldn't play Senesi against Man City if you can. I showed my predictions earlier, Wally. I'll try to do that soon, but yeah, I went through the graphics not so long ago. Probably in the next 20-30 minutes, I'll do so one more time before the deadline locks in. Start Diouf or Van de Ven. Probably Van de Ven. Tengo 7.1 millones para un mediocampista. Ya tengo Semenyo, Sar, Saka y Xhaka. Quizás Enzo Fernández, Minta, Ndai. Para mí el mejor es Enzo Fernández. Me gusta Ndai y Minta está bien para los próximos partidos, pero creo que Enzo Fernández es el mejor. -4, replace Saliba to Gabriel. Probably. Now, if Saliba starts this week and they both get 6 points, it's a possibility, but I think Gabriel's ceiling is far higher. He'll get DEFCON more consistently, bonus points, and goal potential. Punt on Bruno Guimaraes. I'm not completely against that, to be honest with you. I think anyone against West Ham, even Anthony Gordon, looks good this week, but yeah, I'm still quite mindful that at a similar price point, there's Ismail Assar, there's Enzo Fernandez, and even a few others like Ndai. I've covered this question many times, mate. I prefer Nick Pope over Riffs. Kudus to Sarr or Joao Pedro to Mateta? Kudus to Sarr. Sam puts a starting 11. Should I do a -4 for a Palace defender or Mateta or wait? I would probably just wait. If I had to pick, it would be Joao Pedro to Mateta, but I don't think you need to. I don't think that's really necessary. Thoughts on Cucurella currently, Dylan? Not worth the money. Around a month ago, I said he's a sell in FPL. He had one return, I think, since then or something like that. But look, if you got Cucurella at this point, you probably keep for the next 3. If there is a clear pathway, though, to an Arsenal defender or Munoz, I do prefer that. And on a wild card, I wouldn't be going for Cucurella. He's far too much money for what Chelsea offer consistently from a defensive perspective. And Cucurella's not even getting attacking returns this season. So yeah, I think starting him over the next few is fine, even against Tottenham, but he's more of a sell, I think, by the time you get to game week 13 when they play Arsenal. Semenyo or Ndai? Probably Semenyo. And Mukiele or Cucurella? Mukiele. Timber or California? Timber. O'Reilly and Joao Pedro to Welbeck and Munoz? I'd probably say yes, simply because O'Reilly is not nailed on. And Man City have poor fixtures coming up. He's not going to start the next 3, in my opinion. Start 1 of Senesi, Xhaka, DCL, Rodon. You asked this earlier, mate. I covered it. Probably DCL. I think all of them will blank. Hopefully I'm wrong. Start Semenyo or Xhaka. Semenyo. Best defenders for this game week, excluding Arsenal defenders. That limits it quite significantly. Munoz would be up there. Maybe a United defender because I've backed them for a clean sheet. One of Trippier or Burn. I've backed Newcastle to keep a clean sheet. So I'd say rewind my stream, go back to when I showed all the graphics, including my scoreline predictions. You can see which teams I backed for a clean sheet and then base some of that from there. And later on, I will be showing you my predictions one more time, but that will be later on in the stream. Thanks, Mateta's the only one that scares me, but I think I can leave it for 2 weeks. Good luck, Dylan. Likewise, Mateta has a high ceiling, but he has never scored or assisted against Brentford. That could obviously change. Things don't last forever sometimes, but yeah, with Mateta, look, he can still do really well against anybody. He's fixture-proof. He's a great purchase for the next 5-6. But then again, for some people looking to take a -4, -8 to sell Bowen, Joao Pedro, I'm not completely on board. Start 1, Anderson, Reinders, or Richards. Probably Reinders. Yeah. Best Kudus replacement, I have Enzo and Sarr. I'd consider Minta, Ndai. Yeah, the options are quite limited at this price point and below. Yeah, I mean, you could consider a punt on someone like Trossard. That could work. He should start against Burnley. Hey, Dylan, should I take a -4 to replace Zubimendi? Who is the best attacking midfield player? You did ask this earlier, Jeremy. I'm not going to lie to you, and I did answer. But yeah, look, -4 to replace Zubimendi depends on your budget, and I don't know what your budget is, but Sarr, Enzo Fernandez would be great replacements for them. Mbuma, a good captaincy choice, or rather Mateta? I've got Mbuma ranked higher. His record against Forest isn't particularly great, but Mateta is even worse. He has never scored or assisted against Brentford. Ultimately, his stats are incredible. They're both decent captaincy options. I prefer Mbuma, but not by much. Start Mukiele or Enzo. Enzo Fernandez. I have to stress this. Any question regarding Enzo Fernandez, I'm probably going to say start him. Start Mukiele, Anderson, or Joao Pedro. Joao Pedro. Who's the best to replace Robert Sanchez? The best goalkeepers are Raya and Nick Pope, in my opinion. I'd pick David Raya if you can. Start Semenyo or Dewsbury Hall. I'd start Semenyo. Captain Haaland or Saka. In my captaincy list, which I'll refer to very soon again, I pick Haaland as the best captain, but not by much. I am very tempted to get Saka and captain him, but it would be for a -4 hit now, and I don't think it's worth it in my situation. Hey, Dylan, help me pinch one from Gyökeres, Gakpo, Senesi. Bench Senesi. I think that's quite simple. Hola, Dylan, what do you think of Morgan Rogers? Decent form. If you got him, I think he's a hold, but I wouldn't be buying him in just yet. The Liverpool away is not as bad of a fixture now as it would have been a few months ago. Would you take a -4 on top of my existing -4 to sell Tosin and get Munoz and bench Caicedo? Probably not, but I would buy Munoz in the coming weeks, yeah. Hi, Dylan. On a wild card, would you go Gyökeres and Richards or Mateta and Munoz? On a wild card, it would be Mateta and Munoz, but having said that, I think Gyökeres is better than Mateta this week, so it's a difficult balancing act. Sell Elliot Anderson or roll, have free transfers and 0.1 in the bank. Well, unless you're going to a Sarr, Enzo Fernandez or something like that, and that would require downgrading somebody else to give you the funds to make that transfer possible, I'd probably just keep Elliot Anderson on your bench if you can, but I don't know the situation. I don't know who's in your starting 11, and also the domino effect that would cause your chip strategy, but in isolation, based on what you've said, I'd probably just roll and bench Elliot Anderson. I would not be starting him though. Thank you, Jeremy. No worries. Hey, Dylan, good evening. What's your formation looking like? Well, you can see it on screen, mate. 3-4-3. It's not a big deal anyway because I'm bench boosting. I don't see that changing. So essentially, I'm going for 2 goalkeepers, 5 defenders, 5 midfielders, and 3 forwards. Is a Forest new defender playing defensive? I'm guessing the new manager you're talking about. Sean Dyche is renowned for being pragmatic. You know, a lot of work based on set pieces, being tough to beat, resolute defensively. He's similar to Nuno Espirito Santo from last season, as opposed to Ange Postecoglou. So Forest are bouncing between styles. They got a very impressive 2-0 win against Porto in the Europa League, but then lost against Bournemouth quite comprehensively. But yeah, they should be more resolute defensively. I think it'll be low scoring between Forest and Man United today, and we'll see what happens. Bench one from Ndai, Semenyo, Sarr, Burn, and Reinders. Reluctantly, it would be Reinders, actually. Semenyo or Reinders to start. Semenyo, you can also see my bench, even though it's not too relevant because I'm bench boosting. Take a hit to get Van Dijk out. Unless you're going to Gabriel, Timber, or an Arsenal defender, I'd probably just keep Van Dijk. As much as I like Munoz, I don't think he's worth bringing in for a hit this week. I would start Joao Pedro over Reinders there. Sienna Lopez. Thinking of a direct swap from Cucurella to Munoz. I think that's an upgrade, but you mentioned this before. Chelsea have nice fixtures against Burnley and Wolves over the next 3. I think 1 or 2 clean sheets is possible, probably against Wolves at home in Gameweek 11, but yeah, Munoz is an upgrade. Borrow to Timber for a -4. Long term, I think it's worth it. Hi Dylan, do I bench Chalobah or Rodon? I think both of them will blank and concede, but the better chance of a clean sheet is probably with Leeds. Hi Dylan, why do you choose Caicedo over Doku at home? Please enlighten me. Mate, it's just an opinion. Doku is not even nailed on in that Man City team. You look at the points per game and also the points overall. Caicedo is massively above him. He can get DEFCON, even though that hasn't been the case recently. He's got a few goals in him. Doku is very frustrating in his end product. If you're backing Doku, and by the way, he got a massive return against Bournemouth a few years ago. I think he got 2 assists and 10 points. You can go for Doku. I'm not saying you have to go for Caicedo, but I'm asked the question, I'm giving my answer and my opinion. I think Caicedo has more routes to points, and Doku, his minutes are not secure whatsoever. I have Dubravka, Rodon, Senesi, and Krupi Jr. Should I use bench boost? I don't like Dubravka, to be honest. You've got 2 Bournemouth players against Man City away. I don't think Krupi Jr. is that bad, but Senesi, in my opinion, you're looking at 2 free points. Rodon, I think Brighton will score, but he can get DEFCON. I'd probably not use it if it were me. With that bench, I probably wouldn't use it. You can visualize future weeks with a website like FPL.team, which I've said many times in the stream alone and across all my content. It's the best advice I can give to you. Use that website, compare different weeks and how your fixtures look like for your players, and then you can really assess and gauge which week is the best for your bench boost. And personally, I don't think Gameweek 10 is in your situation. Pope or Raya? David Raya. Who to bench, Senesi or Kanate? I'd bench Senesi. Duarte says, hey Dylan, saw Joao Pedro and Ndai for Mbuma and Thiago at the start of the week, not to be priced out. Did I FOMO? Possibly. I think Joao Pedro and Ndai are still decent options, but I see why you did it. I'll be honest, for the next 2-3 weeks, I don't see that as a massive upgrade, but maybe I'm wrong, and there's a massive swing that goes either in your favour or against, but ultimately, you brought in 2 decent players, and Igor Thiago is the best budget forward in the game right now. Stick to Haaland captain or go rogue with Gabriel Timber-Saka. While I've currently got Haaland captain Gabriel Vice, there is something in the back of my mind, and just to stress it, I am going for a 2-0 Arsenal win. I think long-term Timber is a great transfer, so I'm looking to buy him in anyway. But it would not surprise me to see Burnley score. And if that happens, then you're kind of like thinking, well, why did I captain Gabriel Timber? Or so be it. The one Arsenal player I'd be very keen on captaining is Saka. His ownership is lower. People are saying, oh, he's not been in great form recently. He's not getting that many goals or assists. So they're going to skip him. I think Saka is the great opportunity here against Burnley. He also got a massive return against them a couple of seasons ago. So if you want to go different, I think Saka is the way to go. In my Captaincy list, Haaland is top, Saka second, and Gabriel third. Timber could arguably be in that list as well. I'll show it one more time, but once again, you feel free to rewind, and then you can go back to the live section and have more questions answered. But yeah, that is my opinion on the captaincy. And ultimately with Haaland, he's not the complete standout against Bournemouth. Start Reinders or Van der Ven? Reinders. Hey Dylan, help me bench one from Gyökeres, Gakpo, Senesi. I covered this earlier, mate. Senesi, thank you very much. Mateta hat-trick today? I don't think so. Grande Dylan amigo, como ves a Joao Pedro, Mateta y Enzo y Sorry, something was playing in my bloody phone. Joao Pedro, Mateta y Enzo Minta por lo menos 4. Depende de quién vas a vender. Entonces, que Joao Pedro para Mateta y Enzo Fernández para Minta. No creo que vale la pena vender a Enzo Fernández, especialmente para un -4. Creo que para mí estás empeorando tu mediocampista. Yo sé que vas a comprar Mateta con el dinero que tienes por esa transferencia, pero no creo que vale la pena. Hi Dylan, on a wild card, would you go Gyökeres and Richards or Mateta Munoz? I covered this earlier, mate. I can't stress this enough. Mateta Munoz. I'm going to try go through different things. So if I have answered a question earlier, don't feel offended, but I'm just going to go through different things. Otherwise, it's going to be boring for the viewers. I have Dubravka, Rodon, Senesi, and Kripi Jr. Yeah, sorry, I just realized now. Reinders are in die. I'd start in die. Sanchez derived for a -4. Can't afford Arsenal defenders. Long term, I think the hit will pay off. I'm just not a massive fan of buying a goalkeeper, especially for a hit. I do like Sanchez's fixtures against Burnley and Wolves over the next 3. So from that perspective, I'd probably just keep Sanchez for now. Thank you, Awali. As he says, subscribe to the channel, like the stream. Let's get this over 200 likes. It goes a long way. I've answered hundreds of questions, shown you all the graphics, team news, injury updates, and given you an ultimate guide for Game Week 10 and beyond. Yeah, throughout the week, I've said this many times. For me, Igor Thiago is the best budget forward, so that's my answer. I have 3 transfers. Should I do Richards to Munoz? Is it worth the transfer? If you're happy with the rest of your team, I think it's worth the upgrade. It might seem sideways, but Munoz has a far higher ceiling. Sydney says, Ivan Dyer Mukiele. Should I replace Goodmanson with Anderson and start him over Mukiele, or to avoid the clash or roll? Interesting. Look, Anderson has good fixtures, but Fulham aren't great defensively. They're not going to keep many clean sheets. Since the beginning of last season, they've kept 5, which is very poor. So I'm not so sure about that, mate. I just start McKellen and die. It's not great on paper. It's possible for both of them to get returns in the same game from DEFCON or something like that, but I just keep what you've got, mate. Are you happy with your bench boost players? Well, Dubravka's the weak link against Arsenal at home on paper. The rest is okay. I don't think it's a bad bench boost, and I'd rather just get rid of it. I've also got 2 free transfers that will make the 50-man squad look better, like Borro to Timber and getting Sarr for Gakpo, which, I'll be honest, I don't think it's a massive upgrade this week. I think Gakpo could outscore Sarr, but it does fund the Borro to Timber move. Start 1, Elliot Anderson, Senesi, Goodmanson. Not great, but yeah, it's between Elliot Anderson and Goodmanson for me. Both of them can get DEFCON. I think Elliot Anderson is more likely. Based on my predictions, I'd probably start Elliot Anderson. Play Goodmanson or Van der Ven. Once again, Probably play Goodmanson. Slightly better chance of a clean sheet. I'm going to get punished for still believing in Joao Pedro. Look, that will obviously be felt if the players you're looking to bring in go off massively. But we'll see. I just don't see a massive difference. Thank you very much, Goldhead. As he says, be sure to drop a like. Let's get the stream up to 200. And obviously a massive thank you to the members, patrons, and super chatters. You're all massively appreciated. So, yeah, we do have over 100 likes. I appreciate those that have done it. Let's get to 200 by the end of the stream. And a big up to the community. You do go a long way to boosting us up. And we are closing in on 37,000 subscribers very soon. I think by the Tuesday, when I go live for UCL Fantasy, we will hit that new milestone. So let's just keep on pushing and growing as a community together. We're around 150 subscribers away from the next big goal. Thank you, Aranya, for the super chat. Let me go through it right now. My 15 is Sanchez, Van de Ven, Reinildo, Lacroix, Saka, Bruno, Semenyo, Foden, Joao Pedro, Haaland, Guiu, Dubravka, Reinders, Senesi, Estev. So I liked Guiu as a punt last week against Sunderland. It didn't pay off. There is no guarantee that he's going to start against Tottenham. I've seen a few predicted lineups with him in there. I personally think Joao Pedro will start up front with Enzo Fernandez further forward. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I'd rather start Reinders over Guiu. And because you've got free transfers and a lot of money in the bank, I would be tempted to make a few changes. So I think Foden to Mbeumo does stand out, but you do have Bruno Fernandes already. One thing you could consider is Foden to Ismaila Sarr. Then you could do Guiu up to an Igor Thiago, Jean-Philippe Mateta, or Voltemada. I think that stands out immediately. You then got that extra transfer, which you don't need to use, but you can then improve upon, let's say, Estev as well. And if you have enough money, I haven't done the exact calculations, but if you can do Estev to Munoz, Sarr in for Foden, and then Guiu to Igor Thiago or Mateta, Voltemada as well is another great option, or solid option at least. I'd do that, Aranya, and then maybe bench boost with that 15-man squad. Should I bring Lacroix in for Ake or Senesi? I'd rather sell Ake. He's not even going to start this weekend, and even if Ake does get like a start or two over the next 3, he's not nailed on. He's not first choice for Man City anymore. Would you do Joao Pedro to Mateta this week? Only for free and with a view to the long term, because Mateta has better fixtures and underlying stats. There is a case to keep Joao Pedro for the next 3, but yeah, for free, I'm not completely against it. I just don't think it's a massive upgrade for the next 2 free matches, in my opinion. Marikichu puts his team. What's your suggestion? Free transfer, 0.3 in the bank. Yeah, I think Concert is a sell, despite the return last week. The rest is fine, but I would maybe highlight someone like Borro and Reinders as sells as well. So what you could do is, it's kind of difficult here because essentially Reinildo, well, he's fine. You don't need to sell him this week, of course, but Konsa and Reinders are budget midfielders, really, or budget players, I should say. But maybe something like Reinders to Xhaka, just to give you extra funds, and then doing Borro to Timber, and then Konsa to Richards. That could work very well for you, and you can even bench boost with that sort of setup. But if you're not bench boosting, don't feel a need to make all those moves. The same goes to Aranya in the question I just answered. So only make 2 free transfers if you're willing to bench boost this week. But those are the 3 players I'd highlight as priority sells. I think Gakpo could also be improved upon, but this week he's fine against Villa. So let's put it this way. If I could get Timber for Border for free, without having to downgrade Gakpo to Sarr, I'd probably do that this week and then do Gakpo to Sarr in Game Week 11 or 12. But to get Timber, I need to sell Gakpo to Sarr. And that's why I'm looking to do it. But I think Gakpo is sellable in the coming weeks. Hopefully you understand me and we're on the same wavelength. I'm thinking of one Palace and Arsenal in the mid and defence. Yeah, so similar ideas to what I was discussing. I mean, Declan Rice would be your most accessible Arsenal midfielder and also very underrated. He's got many avenues to points. He's one of the best midfielders in the Premier League, and I think he's a very solid, consistent option. Start Thiago or Caicedo. It's close, but I would start Igor Thiago. Welcome, Chelsea Blues. Good to see you. Hi, Dylan Gabriel for a hit. It depends who you're selling, but I think Gabriel will pay off the hit in no time. Best 5.5 million or under mid. Probably Xhaka, but only because he gives you 3-4 points consistently. Don't expect massive returns. Rodon, Senesi, or Van de Ven start 1. Probably, it's between Rodon and Van de Ven. It's close. Probably Rodon. Start Konsa, Senesi. Is it Konsa or Senesi, Keller or Dubravka? I would start probably Senesi just because of DEFCON. I think Konsa and Senesi will concede. And I would go for Kelleher over Dubravka. Kudus, Reinders and Pedro to Mateta, Sarr, and then a 5 million midfielder. Or around that price point. Well, depends on what exactly we're talking about. Is it 5.1? Is it 5.7? That could make a difference, but probably Xhaka. Have you considered doing Sanchez to Raya? I have considered it, but remember, Chelsea do face Burnley and Wolves over the next 3. Timber has a higher ceiling than David Raya, which is also worth bearing in mind. And to be honest with you, mate, Spurs have worse fixtures than Chelsea. And in this game coming up, I did say a draw. That's my current prediction. But if I had to pick a winner, I think Chelsea are still more likely. So it's a difficult one. I have considered it. That's my answer to your question. But if I were to go back to FPL.team and show you, let's see if I can get this to work. Okay. So this is the Timber route and also Ismail Assar, 0.4 in the bank. This was the alternative where I would keep Borro, get Saka and all of that stuff. But if I were to show you another one, so that's going to be what you discussed, get Raya for Sanchez, there could be a few issues that arise, mainly from a budget perspective. Because Raya costs 5.7, Sanchez is now 4.8. So, as you can see, I would need 0.6. I mean, fair enough. I could just about be able to afford it, I think. I think it's just about worth it. It's just about possible or attainable. It looks slightly better, you could say, for Gameweek 10 for the bench boost, but I look at future weeks and maybe Porro could become Munoz in a couple of weeks' time. That would mean doubling up on Palace defensively. It's not a bad idea. I appreciate the suggestion. It's just I'm not entirely sure. It might be worth going back to the FPL website just to make sure that this would actually be possible. So let's do Sanchez to Raya. And then, yeah, Gakpo to Sarr. Yeah, I have just about enough money to do it. It's another possibility. I'll probably include it in another poll just before I lock in my transfers. But yeah, I'm just not so sure about it. I don't like making goalkeeper transfers, to be honest. Bowen to Mateta for a -4. I'd probably say no. That's just my opinion, though. And if you're really, really bullish on Mateta or you have fear of missing out, I get it. But apart from the hat-trick against Bournemouth, Mateta's been very underwhelming this season. Play Reinders or King? Reinders. Doing Richards to Munoz will likely price me out from doing Gyökeres to Guiu and Foden to Salah. I'm not so sure why you'd want to get Guiu. I mean, yeah, it's to get Mohamed Salah, right? But I just don't like Guiu as an option. I'd rather get Kripke Jr., even though by that stage he might get benched for Evanilson. But I wouldn't be too concerned about that. Obviously, you said earlier you got free transfers, you don't know what to do with them, and you could do Richards to Munoz, which looks great. But if you feel like that's going to compromise moves you want to make later down the line, then maybe it's not worth doing, to be honest with you. But my problem is Guiu is just someone to sit on your bench. He's not someone to start week in, week out, even in the plum fixtures like Burnley and Wolves, because by that stage he might not even start for Chelsea. And I don't have him in my predicted lineup against Tottenham, which I might be wrong about. But it's a difficult situation. It's not easy, but I'll be honest with you, I think Munoz is an upgrade, but it's not a transfer you have to make. Hey Dylan, Mukiele or Anderson? Mukiele. I would not take a -4 hit to sell Joao Pedro. I've been very consistent on that. Punjabi says, please suggest starting 11. Yeah, it's not easy. I mean, ideally I'd bench one of the defenders for Joao Pedro, but you can't do that, right? So yeah, I would have Joachim Anderson over Senesi in the bench order. I think benching Joao Pedro could be very costly, but who do you bench? I mean, yeah, I see your dilemma, and I probably agree with how you've structured things. Maybe Gakpo out for Joao Pedro, maybe, but to be honest with you, you've got squad depth. You could even bench boost this week. If you got the bench boost, that might be your best solution, to be honest with you. Voltemada is in my top 10 captaincy options, but Newcastle are quite suspect away from home. They're much stronger at St James's Park. Voltemada only has 1 goal away from home. That was against Brighton, and they lost the game, but he got 8 points overall. But I don't think he'll offer you a massive ceiling in terms of double-digit hauls. So I'm not so sure about that. So I'm going to put this poll out quickly, lock in my transfers, then I'll try to answer more member questions and stuff before the end. But in this poll I put out with over 500 votes, 53% voted for Timber and Sarr as part of 2 free transfers. The first option is for a -4 hit to get Saka, Sarr and Thiago by selling Bruno Fernandes, Gakpo and Joao Pedro. But I'm going to include the David Raya route as well because I just about have enough money to make that possible. So these are my final transfer plans. So let's do, yeah, Sanchez and Gakpo. No, that's the wrong one. Okay, let me get this up. So we only have around 70 minutes to lock in our teams. Make sure to have everything set up, whether you're bench boosting, wildcarding, playing a chip, or just your captaincy. Even the vice can be important. The structure of your bench, you know, who's first, second, third. Make sure everything is sorted before the deadline. We have just 60 minutes left, so make sure to have everything set up. Does not let me get the emoji on. What's this? Okay, let's do it now. Sanchez, Gakpo to Raya and Sarr. And the alternative, kind of similar, but basically it would be Porro to Timber and Sarr. That's what it comes down to. I mean, ultimately, I shouldn't even show the other one. That's just a waste of characters, and also it's distracting. So basically what comes down to is Porro to Timber or Sanchez to Raya. And just bear in mind the upcoming fixtures as well. Tottenham do not have good fixtures, whilst Chelsea at least have Wolves at home and Burnley away. With Sarr poised to with Sarr replacing Gakpo for the extra funds. Okay, there you go. Yeah, thank you, Wally. Try to be patient. Any spamming would not be tolerated. West Ham is vulnerable from the air. Yes, they are. But Voltemada, despite scoring a few goals for Newcastle in aerial situations, that's not his biggest strength, actually. He's a very unique player in terms of his playstyle. But, yeah, West Ham are very poor from set pieces, that's for sure. Enzo and Ndai, Lacroix, bench 1. I mean, look, from those 3 players, I'd bench Lacroix. Lacroix over Gay? Not necessarily, but if I were buying a Palace defender, it'd be Munoz. Otherwise, I'd just go for the cheapest, which is Chris Richards. Hi, Dylan Dubravka, Joao Pedro, Senesi, Rodon bench boost? Yes. Just because of Joao Pedro, really. I think the others are a bit questionable. Dubravka against Arsenal, probably a blank. Senesi against City as well. I don't think Rodon's terrible. I've covered this many times, Roy, in this stream and throughout my content. I think both are viable, but my preference is still double Arsenal defense and Saka. Sarr or Enzo? I'm probably going to get Sarr. I think long-term that's the better pick, but I do like Enzo Fernandez this week. Start Mukiele or Burn? Dan Burn, I think. I mean, look, in my starting 11, well, to be fair, both of them are on my bench, but yeah, it would be Dan Burn. Own Haaland, Joao Pedro, Mateta, 1 free transfer. I can do Joao Pedro to Voltemada. For free, I don't mind buying Voltemada, but I don't see him as a massive upgrade over Joao Pedro for the next 3, based on the fixtures. That's just my opinion. Mbeumo is 5th on my captaincy list. Arguably, I've overrated him a bit. His record against Forest isn't great, and I think it'll be low scoring. But if United score a goal, I think Mbeumo's the most likely, and he can get maximum bonus points. Yeah, I would never start Guiu. He would be last on my bench. That's fair enough. I can get that. So if you're worried about not being able to get Salah, and you really want him by Gameweek 13 as a differential, then maybe don't get Munoz, which is a shame. Wait, Porro to Timber. You have Raya Sanchez wrong way round in the poll. I don't, mate. So what I'm saying is, I'm going to make one of these transfers. So Sarr will replace Gakpo to give me extra funds, and that will allow me to do either Sanchez to Raya to get that Arsenal defensive coverage, or do Borro to Timber. So, yeah, it is the right order, actually. Start Chalobah or Richards. Richards is more likely to keep a clean sheet, so probably him. Bench Semenyo or Enzo. Reluctantly, I'd bench Semenyo. I don't like that, though. I benched him many times last season. I got burned for it. Is Bowen to Mateta worth it? Free transfer, by the way. It is worth it long term. I'm not disputing it. I just have some reservations about people taking hits to get Mateta in. He has never scored or assisted against Brentford. That'll probably change this weekend. I'm not denying that, but I'm not like shivering in my boots about Mateta scoring a brace or hat-trick against Brentford. He could do it, but ultimately I don't think there are many standout forwards right now. Mateta's probably second or third best, but there isn't a massive difference between him over Voltemada, João Pedro, despite the recent blanks from him. And ultimately Chelsea can turn around their fortunes. João Pedro can start getting some goals again, but the main concern with João Pedro is playing through injury and also not taking shots. Bench one, Caicedo, Anderson, Richards. I'd personally bench. Look, it's very awkward because I've gone for 2-1 Palace and also 2-1 Fulham. Anderson is more likely to get DEFCON. So because of that, I'm going to say bench Richards. But long term, there is no doubt in my mind I prefer Richards over Anderson. But for this week, I'd probably bench Richards here. Welbeck or Minter? It's very situational, right? I mean, if you have Minter, who do you have up front? If you got Welbeck, who do you have in the midfield? In isolation, it's probably Welbeck. But there's not a massive difference. Anderson or Richards? Yeah, that's been covered just now. Hi, Dylan. I have 2 free transfers. Should I sell Bowen and Caicedo? I don't know what your budget is, mate, but if you can do Bowen to Mateta and let's say Caicedo to one of Enzo or Sarr, I like that, but you might not have the funds to make that possible, so difficult for me to say. I would bench, very good question here, I'd probably bench Caicedo. I still think Bowen, if West Ham do anything against Newcastle, it will go through Bowen, and he played very, very well. In my opinion, Timber's a bigger minutes risk than Borro, and having Raya gives you access to all Arsenal clean sheets, so having Raya and Borro rather than Sanchez and Timber gives you more potential. Yeah, that's an interesting way of looking at it, and you're not completely wrong, but since Gameweek 1, where White started, and Timber was also recovering from an injury, we've seen that shift, and Timber's clearly first choice, but I've said this many times, Timber will get the odd benching, and I don't think that'll happen against Burnley now, but it could happen later down the line, and there's also Tottenham and Chelsea on the horizon. Obviously, that applies to Raya as well. But, yeah, the main reason why I'm looking to get Timber is because over the next 2-3 weeks, Chelsea have Wolves and Burnley. So I still got that Chelsea defensive coverage, and Tottenham have poor fixtures in comparison. They're facing Chelsea and Man United next, and then Arsenal away. So because of that, and I'm looking to wildcard in 12 or 13, you make a great case, very good points, and I appreciate your feedback, but I still think I'm going to sell Borro instead. And that is currently, well, I say winning, it's 50-50. It's a very, very close call, but yeah, I think I made my mind up quite some time ago, but it was interesting considering that avenue as well. Sanchez to Raya, and ultimately, long term, big picture, I think the best way to cover Arsenal defensively is Gabriel and Raya in goal, as opposed to Timber, but ultimately that's a very subjective thing, not much to separate them. But yeah, because I'm wildcarding in 12-13, I think I'm going to go for this route. Let's see what else we've got. Just going to have a quick look at Twitter, see if there's anything. I don't think there's going to be any early, leaks or lineups and stuff, but it's always worth having a look. It's been a while since we've had this sort of thing. Drop a like on the stream as well. I've answered hundreds of questions, provided all the updates, predicted lineups, team news, injury, suspensions, you name it. Talked about blank Gameweek 17, double Gameweek 16. But, yeah. Okay, I'm going to make my transfers now. So I'm going to buy in Dre and Timber. And we'll see. It could be a massive swing. Maybe Borro gets a return or something, and you know, Sanchez gets a red card. Who knows with this bloody game? Yeah, 0.4 in the bank. I'm happy to keep Sanchez onto our wild card. Then I'll want nothing to do with him really. But I think this is the best course of action. And ultimately, for those that maybe want a visualization, this is why I highly recommend using FPL.team, the website. My team will look like this with Timber and Sarr being bought in. So Sanchez and Dubravka as my goalkeepers. I would have Timber, Gabriel, and Lacroix. Fernandez, Indai, Semenyo, Sarr. Voltemada, Haaland, and Joao Pedro. With Reinders, Burn, and Reinildo on the bench. Looking at Game Week 11 as well, I could also go for this sort of structure. That looks quite solid, in my opinion. I've even got some benching dilemmas in terms of Burn versus Lacroix with their respective fixtures, but the way I see it, I could hold off on the wildcard until Game Week 12 or 13. I think that is probably the way to look at it. And obviously, by the time we get to Game Week 13, I almost certainly would have wildcarded by then. I can then get rid of Robert Sanchez and maybe change things up a little bit. By that stage, I can get Raya in goal and sell Jurian Timber if need be. So I think that's the way I'm going to go about it. So going back to FPL.team, going back to the FPL website, yeah, I'm going to buy in Jurian Timber and Ismaila Sarr for 2 free transfers. Borro and Gakpo will make way, and there's no denying that the Dutchman could do well against Aston Villa at home. He might even be better than Sarr this week, but I'm going to make these 2 moves, and that is it. I've locked myself in. And that is a pretty solid bench boost in my opinion. The goalkeepers aren't great. Then again, if I bought in Raya and had Borro against Chelsea, not the best. Obviously, he's always got DEFCON potential and stuff like that. Of course, for those wildcarding in 11, I think that would have been a pretty good set of transfers. Getting the Raya, you know, move in for Sanchez, but I'm quite happy to wildcard in 12 or 13 and go about things this way. There's not a massive deal, by the way, but just some people are a bit OCD. Maybe I'm one of them. Yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm bench boosting anyway. It really doesn't make any difference. And then I can do, yeah, Sarr. You're probably thinking, what are you doing? But yeah, just having them all lined up. And there you go, OCD galore. Gabriel is still my vice captain, by the way. I mean, do I do a shithousery and bench Joao Pedro? It doesn't really matter, but that is my bench boost. At least we've got a few chip strategies flying around, you know, a few wild cards. You've got free hits as well. I'm bench boosting. Others are just using transfers. Others taking hits. It's good to see variety. This probably won't be the case in the second half of the season, but that's how I'm lining up for Game Week 10. Thank you to those that voted in the poll, that liked the stream, that subscribed. We are closing in on 37,000. Check all the links in my description for my Patreon and the championships. Sign up there. You know, click the join button on YouTube or go to patreon.com/FPLDylan. Furlax to my videos, prior to comments, and many other perks. And what I'm going to do for the remainder of the stream is identify those members and answer your questions. If you are a patron as well, let me know as well. So, let's see. Timber for Senesi -4. I'm not entirely sure about that because with Senesi, I'd like to bench him against Man City and Villa, but I think he's worth keeping afterwards. He's got DEFCON potential despite a drop-off recently. I think Jurian Timber is a good option for the next 3 weeks, but yeah, overall, I'd probably say go for it. I think Arsenal's defence, it should pay off long-term, and doubling or tripling up is definitely viable, but I think Senesi's still decent. I set up my players the same way you do. Look, I don't always do that, but I've had people say, oh, that looks a bit ugly, or oh, can you do this? So, whatever, I just did it. I had a bit of time to spare. I did the transfers, not early, but yeah, early enough to not stress about it until the very end. Best time for bench boost other than this week? It's all team dependent, mate. I'm not trying to sit on the fence, but I've said this for quite a few weeks now. You know, I was looking at weeks like Game Week 8 and 10 as very decent opportunities, and for some people, Game Week 9 was the best course of action. Of course, it wasn't the case for me. I would have gotten 9 points from the bench boost. But yeah, basically, I think with the bench boost, it's probably best to get rid of it as early as possible. Game Week 16, you've got 5 free transfers, so there are always, you know, kind of arguments to be made to save it for that sort of period, but you've also got AFCON, you might be selling in Bumo, Salah by that stage, and players like that in Die. So that could also get in the way of a bench boost. So it's a balancing act. But I think Game Week 11 and 12 can still work very well. OCD, no slow OCD, says, yeah, exactly. Top-notch strategy, bench boost caught off guard. Well, I've been talking about this for a while, so I'm not like, doing something last minute, spontaneously. I did plan the bench boost for the last week or so, and even in recent team selections, I talked about this being a possibility. It looks good on paper. We'll see how it actually does overall, but I'm quite happy to get rid of it. Remember, we have another bench boost in the second half of the season. I've only used the triple captain up until this point, so after this, it's all about the wild card and free hit. And I'm even considering a Gameweek 11 free hit myself, but I'll be honest with you, it's not locked in, and I actually like my team for Gameweek 11 as things stand. So plenty to mull over. Check out my upcoming team selection to see what I'm going to do. There's also going to be a transfer tips, a best wildcard squad, and also other deadline streams. There could even be a reaction stream tonight. If you want to see it, drop a like, show support to the channel, and that will be done after all the games take place today. And there you get like a very hot takes, off the cuff reactions. You get maybe a more chilled tone, no deadline to adhere to, but that is my team at the moment, of course, and I have made the transfers already. So just in case I want to do like a -4 hit, I've got this transfer section ready, but yeah, I just don't see myself taking a hit now, particularly for a goalkeeper. So yeah, this is my final team. So a big up to 2 people to thank here, and then I'm going to go through the member questions. So thank you, Ahmed, for gifting 5 memberships. We are actually over 100 members on YouTube, and we have been for quite a while. That's a big thanks to the likes of Ahmed, Ahmad, and also Paredes, and also Napstars over the last couple of months who have gifted so many memberships. And on Patreon, we've also got a great community there as well. So you'll get early access to my videos, prior to comments, and many other perks, which can all be found in the description. So to Mina, Kent Theo, Han, Kilon, and Jasri, enjoy that membership for an entire month. We need a deadline stream for sure. Look, deadline streams will always be the case, right? Unless I'm traveling and I say, in advance. But for the last year or two, I've basically not missed a deadline. With reaction streams, I'd love to keep them going until people get sick of them. So if people want to see it on, today, I'm happy to do so. Eze captain, bring me luck. Yeah, all the best, mate. Eze played very well in the second half against Palace, scored the winning goal, and had moments against Brighton. But yeah, Eze has moments of magic. He's a game winner, and he can be the difference maker for Arsenal this season. Start 2 of Paqueta, Curtis, and Reinders. Difficult one, but I would probably bench Paqueta. So we do have a new member. So big up to Osman Dida. I was trying to find you, but it was kind of lost in all the messages. So if you've got any comments, anything like that, you don't even need to send a super chat because you are a member. And the same goes for all of those who are gifted membership just now. And yeah, just thank you to those that are gifting them. So let's do the shout here. Thank you to SSED Rap for gifting 5 memberships here. And we are locked. A great way to end the stream. So Arthur, Mohammed, Osama, Niraj, and Sam. Oh yeah, that's Paredes. The names, I don't know why they changed the names, but yeah, like I said before, massive thank you for all the good work you've done for the community. It's genuinely appreciated. Yeah, that's the plan, to do a reaction stream today. I'll have to double check the the match times again, just in case, just to make sure I don't maybe stream during a match. That's something I'm open to doing in the future, kind of doing like a hybrid of a watch along. So yeah, Liverpool-Aston Villa is taking place at 8 PM, but I would like to do a stream just after the Tottenham-Chelsea game. So that would maybe start at 7:30. That is what I'd like to do. I'll keep you posted. If anything, it will be tomorrow. But yeah, the ideal scenario is doing it today. And I've already got a UCL Fantasy video up, by the way, for members and patrons. I posted it last night, and that will be posted for all subscribers and viewers tomorrow in the morning. So that's almost 2 days early access for those that have signed up. Check out that Matchday 4 Best Limitless team after this deadline stream is over. But the fun doesn't stop. We can still talk and offer our opinions about the matches. And in just 13 minutes, we will get the lineups for all 3 PM kickoffs. I'm going to have lunch after this as well. Apologies if I couldn't get to your question. I tried my best. But like I said before, members do get the priority. The same goes for patrons as well. Best time for bench boost. Yeah, this was covered just a few minutes ago, mate. So yeah, Gameweek 10 for me was the best. It's not going to be the case for everybody watching, but I would maybe look at Gameweek 11 or 12 in certain situations. captain Haaland or Saka. So yeah, I'm going to go through the graphics again, but they were talked about earlier. Let's end the poll as well. But these are my scoreline predictions. Brighton 1, Leeds 0, Burnley 0, Arsenal 2, Crystal Palace 2, Brentford 1, Fulham 2, Wolves 1, Nottingham Forest 0, Man United 1, Tottenham 2, Chelsea 2, Liverpool 3, Aston Villa 2, West Ham 0, Newcastle 2, Man City 2, Bournemouth 1, and Sunderland 2, Everton 1 on Monday night. My highlighted player and team weakness this week, a bit of a mouthful, is Nottingham Forest and also the inform Brian Mbeumo, which I covered earlier. His price has gone up to 8.3 million. So I'll try to adjust that in terms of the graphics and stuff, but I'll let this play out anyway. You can see his heat map and also the chances conceded by Nottingham Forest so far this season. The clean sheet odds changed a little bit with Arsenal top. Liverpool dropped out of the top 6 now after their 3-0 loss against Crystal Palace in midweek, and Burnley remain bottom with a 12% chance against Arsenal at home. But Fulham, Man City, Newcastle, Brighton and Crystal Palace are in the top 6. And with my top 10 captains, I've been asked a lot about Haaland versus Gabriel and Saka. If you want to go differential, Saka was my recommendation from the beginning. He is second in my list. Gabriel is third, but Haaland is still top dog, just about. His record against Bournemouth isn't great though. Salah, Mbeumo, Gyökeres, Voltemada, Enzo, Bruno Fernandes and Mateta complete the top 10. So I'm going to update a few of the graphics on the cuff. Obviously, a few things changed, like my money in the bank, because I made the transfers, of course. So I've now got 0.4 million. So hopefully this can update live without any issues. And I will be going through all your questions here. Obviously, it'll be easier to manage and we can get through everything for sure. So that's done. There was also one thing. So I think in one of my lineups, which I'd be happy to go over one more time as well. But I'm not going to read out all the names again because that's going to take a lot of time, as you saw earlier. But yeah, with one of them, I think Fulham, the FDR changed a little bit for them. So they're now seen as an easy fixture. FPL made a few changes over the last couple of days to their FDR. So yeah, I'm going to just address that quickly in the graphics and just make sure everything is up to date. So yes, this one for Everton. Fulham at home is now seen as a green fixture after their poor start to the season. Anything else? I think everything else is correct here. I mean, I personally put Arsenal at home as like the most difficult fixture you can get, just because Arsenal are top of the league right now. They're looking very solid and their squad depth is incredible. But yeah, that's just a change I've made manually to what FPL have done on their website with the FDR. So let me just export this as well, and then also update Mbeumo's price. He is 8.3 million. And I will show you the transfer tips graphics very quickly. That was a video I made towards the beginning of the week as well. So as you can see, there's a lot of graphics that I try to have ready for you for every single deadline. And yeah, updating them is fun. I do like updating them, but it also can be a bit hectic, especially with all the price changes that happen every single day. Keeping on top of that, also the fixture swings and stuff. So yeah, I'm always trying to be up to date and giving you the most precise information. And the last one is this. Of course, I will show you FPL Challenge very soon. That's a very rough team. I'll possibly make some changes, including the captain, which is currently on Erling Haaland. And there we go. Let's get Mbeumo here. Okay. So thank you for the patience. There are still over 100 people watching. Let's get the likes up, share, all that good stuff. Even comment for those watching on the playback. And let's continue the conversation on Discord, in my future videos, and the upcoming reaction stream, which hopefully will be tonight, just after Chelsea versus Tottenham, and also before the Liverpool Aston Villa game. And it will also continue. I'll do a bit of a watch along as well, and offering my thoughts on the game and both of their performances. So that's all done here. let me quickly show you the predicted lineups that I've got. And very soon we'll have the official lineups for the 3 p.m. kickoffs, which I'll go over very briefly as well. So you saw the Arsenal team, no real surprises there. And with Aston Villa, Buendia is ruled out, which is a massive blow considering his form. With Bournemouth, my main concern is Diakite versus Milo, I'll call him. And after a good performance against Nottingham Forest, I think he'll keep his place against Man City. And Kripke Jr. should start over Evanilson. With Brentford, Hickey is back, but I think Ajay will start at left back, and Yarmouk has been cleared. He is no longer yellow flagged. My main concern with Brighton is Kadioglu versus De Kuyper, and that is my main concern and doubt, but with the rest, I'm fairly confident. Moving on to Burnley, it's either a 4-2-3-1 or this kind of 5-4-1 formation. Don't even rule out them playing two strikers with Lau, Foster and Fleming up front, or having Anthony play as a sort of floating striker to accommodate Ogochukwu over Bryn Larson in this starting 11. So many possibilities for the Clarets. And with Chelsea, it's either Achimpong or I'd probably say Tosin Adarabioyo and Fofana. If there were one change, or if there was one change I'd maybe make to this starting 11, is probably Fofana for Achimpong. So we'll see how the Blues line up later. With Crystal Palace, Wharton is out due to illness, so it'll be Hughes and Kamada in central midfield. And with Everton, they've got decent fixtures over the next 4, nothing particularly great. Sunderland is now a grey fixture at the Stadium of Light, and Fulham at home is now classed as green on the FDR. With Fulham, I think Muniz will start up front. I believe he's still flagged, but Marcus Silva provided a positive update about him. He is in contention to play, whilst Jimenez remains doubtful. And with Leeds, that's another team I've gotten over 90 correct out of 99 so far this season. I would expect no changes after the 2-1 win against West Ham. And with Liverpool, it could be Szoboszlai as the attacking midfielder, Wirtz on the bench as a super sub, and McAllister partnering Gravenberch, but I would expect the Dutchman to start. The same goes for Cody Gakpo on the left, and Robertson over Kerkez. With Man City, O'Reilly hasn't started recently, but I would expect them to get back into that 11. The same goes for Nico Gonzalez, which allows Rangers to play further forward. And with Man United, Maguire is the only doubt. Everyone else is available. Lisandro Martinez has been out for some time, and Amram said he's not going to rush him, despite the Argentine wanting to feature already against Nottingham Forest. I believe in Mbumo, Cunha and Sesko will start up front. And with Newcastle, it's either Cher or Botman to partner Chow, who has been brilliant for Newcastle so far this season. And I believe Jacob Murphy will start here and Elanga in the Champions League. With Nottingham Forest, I'd probably expect this sort of settled 11. It seems more consistent compared to previous managers, especially Ange Postecoglou. And with Sunderland, it's either Alderete or Gertruida. And yeah, I pronounced it correctly yesterday, but I need to hear how I said it again. I completely forgot. But it's between those two players if Sunderland play a back 5. But of course, they have predominantly played a back 4 this season, and the shift to a back 5 caught Enzo Maresca by surprise last week. And Tottenham Hotspur could also play with a back 5 with Danso, Romero and Van de Ven. But if they stick with a 4-2-3-1, this is the most likely starting 11 with Kolomwani up front. We've got 2 teams left with West Ham. They've made a lot of weird changes and formations and stuff like that recently, but I would expect them to play Magassa and Callum Wilson finally up front to solidify things in that sort of spine, and their defence has been terrible this season. The same goes for Wolves, who only had one injury before midweek, but the likes of Doherty and his replacement, Rodrigo Gomez, were both subbed off due to injury. That's why I've got Hwang Hee-chan starting as the left winger, and the right back is my main issue, and I would have expected Doherty to start, but he was subbed off with that injury. So it's either Chichawa or Hoover as the right back for Wolverhampton Wanderers. So I'm now going to go back to the analysis section. So let these scoreline predictions play out, and then just freeze it a little bit on the Mbumo highlighted player this week. And he's a great transfer in the long term. His ownership is now very high at 26%. He's very template all of a sudden with those recent returns. But you can see his updated price now on screen, 8.3 million. I believe it was overnight where he got that price rise. But yeah, I'll keep it now locked in on this. And in a few minutes, I'll show you the lineups for the 3 p.m. kickoffs and an FPL challenge. But let me answer some questions first and foremost. They won't be highlighted in this screen you see on screen, but you will see that later on before I wrap things up. So big up to the new members and also to all the gifted memberships. So yeah, thank you, Ahmed. Customary membership gifts to my family. Enjoy it and join us. Massively appreciate it, Ahmed. You've done great work for the channel. The same goes for Paredes and all the others like Napstars and Ahmed as well. Gay or Mukiele? Probably Mukiele this week. I did predict 2-1 for both Palace and Sunderland anyway. Should I sell Salah or keep him till AFCON? Well, this is something I've talked about for many weeks and months now. It's kind of awkward with Salah. He's not worth the money. I'd be tempted to sell him and spread the funds around, but I don't know your situation. It's very difficult for me to say you should do this or that when I don't know, your squad, which players you've got. Does having Salah deprive you of certain assets that you want in other positions like Munoz, Saka, etc.? So these are key questions that need to be answered before I can give you a definitive, solution. Yeah, thank you, Arthur. That would be great to do a reaction stream tonight, and I'll keep it in mind, the people that are already voicing their kind of feedback. Do you think we're overlooking Yeremy Pino? Well, he did very well against Liverpool. I believe he scored and assisted in that 3-0 win. But before that, he's been good for Palace in terms of over-performances, but not enough goal contributions. Yes, he has been overlooked, but ultimately, I'd still pick Mateta or Sarr to cover that Palace attack. Yeah, thank you, Arthur. Yeah, the one to thank there is Ahmed, for sure. For some reason, I'm shown as SSED Rap. Yeah, I have no idea why it shows it here. Yeah, YouTube made changes in the last week or so when it comes to YouTube names, and hopefully they go back to how it was before. But yeah, Paredes is the name, of course. Yeah, FPL Challenge will be talked about very soon, but I want to have the lineups come out and then go through them one by one. Yeah, I agree. Haaland, Saka captain is very close for me as well. If Saka showed more consistency in terms of output, I would have put him first as the captaincy choice this week. Thank you, Rai. Wishing everyone all the very best. Big up to the best FPL content creator. Thank you very much, and hopefully I can see you in the upcoming videos and the live stream later tonight, which is the plan. Going against Haaland captain this week or next? To be honest with you, I'm more keen on captaining Haaland against Liverpool than I am this week against Bournemouth, but I don't have Saka, and he was my main captaincy contender for Erling Haaland this week. I think Gabriel isn't too far away, but look, despite buying Timber this week, it would not completely surprise me to see Arsenal concede, because they've gone so many, games without conceding. It's eventually going to stop, right? Locked in, come on, girls and boys, let the FPL chaos begin. Yes, that's for sure. Yeah, big up Ahmed as well, and to Paredes. Saka captain and went from Kilman, Arias, Joao Pedro to Munoz, Sarr, Krupi. Yeah, look, I like Joao Pedro for the next 3 on paper, but he hasn't been good enough. And because you're using that move to get the funds to get Sarr and Munoz, I'm on board with it, because Kilman and Arias just aren't doing it, so I agree. Arthur says, I'm in a similar situation to you, where I still have my wildcard, but my team is strong. It feels wrong wildcarding. Yeah, also, in recent weeks, I've been having momentum. Obviously, Game Week 9 was an exception. I got a red arrow, only just. But before that, I got 75 points in back-to-back weeks. I got 82 in the following week. And before that, I triple captain Haaland and got a massive green arrow. So there has been progress, and it's difficult to wildcard when you're getting those green arrows consistently. Hopefully, I think with Gyökeres, a goal or two is probably more realistic, but look, Burnley have been solid and competitive in most matches. I don't think it'll be easy for Arsenal, but Gyökeres has the highest hat-trick potential in the Arsenal team. Mateta's my captain. Yeah, good option. Never scored against Brentford or assisted, but that could change this weekend. Gabriel triple captain, says Drowdy. All the best there. FPL's going crazy this season. Lots of unexpected results. That is true. I think there's also less consistency from the premiums and the template picks. Only Haaland has really been doing it. So yeah, that's a very good point. But apart from Arsenal, who are 4 points clear, the Premier League table is very congested at the moment. Timber captain, I'll be back for the reaction stream. Thank you very much, Ahmad. And yeah, hopefully for both of us, Timber does the business. Watch along during the game, not waiting until the game is over. Oh, that will be too late anyway, especially for people in Asia. Obviously, I am quite wary of time zones and where, the kind of vast majority of my viewers are from. But yeah, also, it'd be late for me. I wouldn't have dinner until, I don't know what, midnight or something, or I'd have to have dinner really early. So it's just a bit awkward if I waited until 10:30 p.m. to stream after the Liverpool Villa game. And also, I don't think many people would tune in, or as many. Everton more out of hope than anything, as I have in Die. So you went for 2-1 Brighton, 2-0 Arsenal, 1-1 Palace, 1-0 Fulham, 2-1 United, 2-1 Spurs, 2-1 Liverpool, 2-0 Newcastle, 2-1 City, and 2-2 Sunderland Everton. Yeah, I'd love to have Ndai Hall there, but I've also got Reinildo, so there is a clash regardless because of my bench boost. Regarding the name, it's only in this page. On others, I still show Paredes. Yeah, that's what kind of confuses me, though. And I've never seen SSED rap before, but obviously that's now been the case for a week, right? But before that, I was like, who is this guy? And he's a member. I was like, I don't recognize that name. And then I quickly realized what YouTube have done. If you still have Salah, could just keep fixtures getting better, but what is the squad suffering? It's exactly that, right? And he got the goal against Brentford, but only 6 points. But yeah, it's really circumstantial. I just feel that if you have Salah and it's really limiting you in other areas, I'd sell him still. But the fixtures are there. I would back Liverpool to get a few wins. Out of the next 5, I think Liverpool win 3 of them. But yeah, the next 2 look very tough. Haaland captain versus shambolic Liverpool defence. Well, yeah, if they continue defending that way, I'd be very happy captaining Haaland. And he's probably the standout, more so than he is against Bournemouth this week. So yeah, the lineups are out. I'm going to refresh the pages and get them ready for you. And I will start off with the home teams first. So just give me a few seconds to just get these lineups ready. And after that, I'll show you FPL Challenge and wrap things up for today, at least for this deadline stream. So yeah, hopefully no massive problems. But yeah, there's already a few kind of surprises, you could say, or returns in terms of key players, not just FPL-wise, but also in terms of their overall quality. Brentford have a very interesting graphic for their 11, probably the best actually in the Premier League, because it kind of shows you the formation as well. So I'm very close. There's a lot of teams, a lot of 3 PM games. That's why it's taken me a little longer than usual to get these up. But yeah. Some of them do have hyperlinks, which I'm being mindful about. Yeah, that one's got a hyperlink. It's mainly the big clubs like Arsenal and United that do that. So it takes you to their page. But yeah, now I just need Fulham and Wolves. But of course, some of you will be commenting on this as we speak, and I'll highlight your comments very soon. Okay, I think we're done. Okay. Let's start off with Brighton, and Kadioglu does start. He was in my original predicted lineup, so I did F up there. The rest is correct, though. Yeah, the rest is correct. So Kadioglu over De Kuyper. So Verbruggen, Dunk, Van Heck, Jorginho Rota, Minter, Beleba, Welbeck, Kadioglu, Gomez, Ayari, and Vifa, with Hurstler also included in the graphic. With Leeds United, Perry, Bogle, Goodmanson, Rodon, Biol, Ampadu, Longstaff, Tanaka, Aronson, Okafor, Calvert-Lewin. So I did get 11 out of 11 correct for Leeds United. So no changes from the 2-1 win against West Ham. For West Ham United, they've gone for Dubravka, Walker, Hartman, Esteve, Twansebi, Ogachukwu, Anthony, Florentino, Fleming, Cullen, and Laurent. So I was very close to actually, I even had a graphic ready for this. It's like a 5-3-2 formation, or maybe having Anthony play as a second striker or like a roaming winger. So having those 3 midfielders in Ogachukwu, Florentino, and Cullen, and also introducing Laurent into the 11 again. So yeah, fair enough. That's 10 out of 11 correct for Burnley. And for Arsenal, Saliba does start, and Mosquera is on the bench. So Raya, Timber, Saliba, Gabriel, Calafiori, Rice, Zubimendi, Eze, Saka, Trossard, Gyökeres. But so far the predictions are good. A bit frustrating because I almost got some of them exactly spot on. With Crystal Palace, it's Henderson, Munoz, Richards, Lacroix, Gay, Mitchell, Lerma, Kamada, Sarr, Pino, Mateta. So it's quite rare, but I did get 10 out of 11 correct for Palace. So Hughes is on the bench. With Brentford, it's Kelleher, Ajer, Vandenberg, Collins, Coyote, Henderson, Yarmouth, Damsgaard, Sharda, Thiago, and Danga Ouattara. So I did get a full house with Brentford. And with Nottingham Forest, it's Sells, Williams, Murillo, Hudson-Odoi, Anderson, Gibbs-White, Douglas Luiz and Doy, Igor Jesus, Milenkovic, and Savona. So yeah, 11 out of 11 correct for Forest. But on the whole, very good predictions. 10 or 11 correct for most of them, and so close to a full house on many occasions. With United, let's see if that gets ruined. It's Lamens, Dallo, De Ligt, Bruno Fernandes, Cunha, Yoro, Amad Diallo, Casemiro, Imbumo, Shaw, and Sesko. So, yeah, also a full house for Manchester United. As for Fulham, though, Leno, Tete, Anderson, Bassi, Sessegnon, Berg, Wilson, Iwobi, King, Kevin, and Jimenez. So, yeah, Jimenez and Kevin are the ones I got wrong. And I was going to go for Jimenez, but then I saw the press conference updates by Marco Silva, and it made me think that Muniz was more likely. So, probably a bit of mind games there from Marco Silva. And with Wolves, it's Johnston, Hoover, Santiago Bueno, Agbadu, Totti Gomez, Hugo Bueno, Bellegarde, Krejci, Menetzi, Arias, and Strand Larsen. So 9 correct for Wolves. And yeah, Hoover was in my original predicted lineup. No surprises there, with a few fullback changes I made that they were ultimately wrong in the end. But still pretty good predictions in general. Hopefully they do help you as a guide to kind of get a sense of how every single team will line up for Game Week 10. So yeah, let me now go to FPL Challenge, which has been talked about a lot. This is my current setup. Rufs in goal, Gabriel, Imbumo, Haaland, Mateta, Welbeck. I could see myself making a few changes here, to be quite honest with you. I'm not entirely settled on this FPL Challenge squad. So even if you're on your way out, drop a like on this stream, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff. Fenerbahce says, went with Saka captain and bought in Munoz, Sarr, Krupi this week. Let's see how it goes. Yeah, I like those transfers in, and Saka captain is obviously very appealing. With Krupi Jr., he's a short-term punt. The fixtures are kind of awkward for the next two, but he's done very well. Definitely going to be here for all your streams, mate. Big up. I appreciate that, Rye. Obviously, sometimes it's a bit late, you know, especially for people in Asia, but I try my best. Good luck with the game week, Dylan. Likewise, Fenerbahce. No one is going Saka captain. Yeah, look, if I bought in Saka, I probably would have captained him. I'm not even just saying that for the sake of it, but it's something I've been talking about all week long. Easy puts his predictions: 2-1 Brighton, 2-0 Arsenal, 3-2 Palace, 2-1 Fulham, 2-0 United, 2-1 Chelsea, Villa to win 2-1, 4-0 Newcastle, 2-0 City, and 1-0 Sunderland. A lot of clean sheets there. Started a 5-4-1 for the first time this season as well. I lost the trust in forwards, so we'll be avoiding anyone other than Haaland for a while. Yeah, I can't even say anything because I've gone for a 3-4-3, but I've bench boosted, so we'll see how it goes. Would be peak FPL with Palace assets blank and Joao Pedro, Reinders, and Gyökeres score. Well, I'd be happy with it because Gyökeres scoring is a good thing for Arsenal, and I've got Reinders and Joao Pedro in my team. But look, Palace don't have an easy game against Brentford. I think their record against them is quite suspect, actually. Yeah, all the lineups have been out. Obviously, you said this before I read them out, but yeah. Basically, the way it works is 1 hour, 15 minutes before kickoff, we get the lineup for every single team. I kept Cucurella for the next few weeks. Didn't want to get rid of a player with high potential, even though Chelsea is leaky. And also, you got Wolves at home and Burnley away, which is why I decided to keep Sanchez and not buy Raya. Instead, I sold Borro for Jurriën Timber. Meltdown for non-Joao Pedro owners if he scores today. I'd be happy with that. Prepared for either horror show or mega Halloween gift. Only time will tell, right? But yeah, I'm hoping that it's a gift in my situation. Yeah, I thought Kadioglu starts 1-0 to me. That's Burnley, not West Ham, fella. Did I say West Ham? Apologies if I did. Predictions good. Yeah, they are good, but it's frustrating when you've even got the graphics ready and you're going to get a full house and then you change it or you go for the other sort of prediction. But that's what it's for. You're not going to get it all right. I always have that hope that 1 week I get every prediction spot on, but yeah, that would be a madness. Thank you very much, Anthony. Cheers for all the good streams. Keep it up. Yeah, there's another one on Tuesday for UCL Fantasy. That's going to be even more hectic than this one. And the plan is to do a reaction stream, preferably tonight, during the Liverpool-Aston Villa game. I will offer a different kind of prediction. Pedro, Gyökeres, Mateta, Kudus, Gakpo to blank. I wouldn't be very happy about that, to be honest. There will be miracles if some of FPL managers somehow captain unexpected player that scores a lot of points. Well, there are opportunities to go against Haaland for the captaincy over the next 3, but it's about picking the right one who can, you know, just deliver. And as Banjo says, Gyökeres must deliver. He must, but so should Isak. Well, no, he's injured right now. I do think Gyökeres is getting... Look, I think it's fair to criticise him and his game and the limitations he's got, especially technically, but I do feel he's getting a bit of heat, or more heat than maybe Joao Pedro and others are, who have scored even fewer goals. I've captained Rice. I like Rice a lot. Not for a captain, but look, it would not completely surprise me if you got a massive return. 2 or 3 a.m. here if you do reaction stream live today. Yeah, I'm aware of that. It's possible that sometimes when I go live, it's going to be really late in Malaysia or in other countries. Bench Cucurella in, starting Paqueta, Pope starts. Okay. I mean, yeah, benching Cucurella against Tottenham doesn't, it's not a bad idea. Now, would it surprise me if he hauled? Not really, but I've gone for 2-2 in that game, and even if Chelsea win, which is a possibility, I think Spurs will score. Max says Captain Gabriel, as I expect him to record at least 0.5 XG due to the amount of corners Burnley are going to concede. Yeah, in terms of, the stats, I mean, Arsenal get so many corners, they're so efficient from them, and Burnley concede a lot of chances. You would expect Arsenal to dominate and get a lot of set pieces, so yeah, if they can capitalise on that, Gabriel always has a chance. I like Saka captain, he's my favourite beyond Haaland, and to be honest, Saka could outscore him this week for sure. Yeah, but they play the same colours, so it doesn't matter. We knew what you meant. Yeah, I'm just going to say it's a long stream, so I just made a mistake, just like maybe I was I lost a bit of focus for a moment, but it is what it is. I don't even care if Joao Pedro scores. To be honest, made 2 other upgrades in defence and midfield, so not bothered. Well, that's what I mean. Like, FPL is not always black and white. Sometimes you make one transfer to fund other moves. So I get why you did it. I said it as well when I first reacted to your message about getting Trippier Jr. I like the other 2 moves enough to say, yes, that's worth it. And you can bench Trippier Jr. in the long term anyway. The G-Man stats are good. He will catch fire at some point. Joao Pedro's stats not that great at the moment. Yeah, I get that. Joao Pedro's not even taking shots, which is a massive concern. And he's also, he's also in a situation where, well, he's blanked 5 times in a row, but I'm looking at the alternatives and I'm not particularly enthused by their consistency. It's 10 p.m. in Malaysia now. Oh, yeah, so I'm not sure exactly. I know there's a massive difference with Asia, normally by 8-9 hours, but yeah, it's going to be late. Let's put it that way. Yo, Dylan, sorry, I was AFK for a bit. Can I send my question again? And if you answered it, if it's cool, I can go back in the stream and watch it. Yeah, of course you can put the question in. So for people who do that, like they wait 5-10 minutes, their question isn't answered, and they put it again. I understand that, but I always try to ensure that people don't spam, because then people will just get into this frenzy. They want their question answered, particularly before a deadline, and they just send the same message time after time after time again, non-stop, and it gets in the way of others. But what you're doing is fine. Now we know you're not a robot. Well, yeah, I've made plenty of mistakes, even during recordings and stuff. I'd have to re-record, edit it out, or just find a way to cover it up. But yeah, I'm human. Unfortunately, it would be much simpler if I was a robot. Made 5 free transfers this week, like a mini wildcard. Great position to be in. Hopefully those transfers pay off, and by Gameweek 16, you get 5 free transfers again. Gyökeres needs to show something today. Nobody cares who he is after today. Baneline. No, look, there are some performances like West Ham at home where I expected and wanted more from Gyökeres, and I said he played poorly, but I also feel in other games where he didn't score, he still offered something to the Arsenal team. His runs stretch out opposition defences, he's very direct, and he's also the best presser, or he's been pressing the most amongst strikers in the league. So he's offering things I didn't expect, but I would still expect more technical quality from him, even though I knew it was never a strength of his, but he has been quite poor with his touches. But yeah, I think this is a great opportunity for him to score today. Dylan, do you think I should just keep Salah to AFCON? Yeah, Ahmed, you asked this a few times earlier, and I did answer this question. Even Twisted Parky and a few others replied to your message, and I even highlighted their messages and built upon that conversation as well. I don't know your team. I can't stress this enough. I don't know if by having Salah, it limits having other options like Munoz and Saka who you might want. I don't know the context. So if I just give an answer, it's going to be without having the informed, just having all the information. It's not going to be an informed answer. Let me put it that way. So if I had Salah now, I'd be tempted to keep if the rest of your 50-man squad is solid. But I can't tell you definitively without knowing your squad. I can't stress that enough. And I did cover your question multiple times earlier. One boxing match this season, good or bad in terms of FPL? I'm not sure if it's good or bad for FPL, but Boxing Day historically is where you get so many games happen at the same time, and United will be the only, well, of course, them and their opponents will be the only ones featuring on that day. Yeah, look, on the most part, Arsenal fans are happy with Gyökeres, but then you're going to have some of them who wanted Sesko, who wanted a different striker. You look at Ekitike, and stylistically, he looks like an Arsenal striker. So it would be amazing if, Arsenal had someone like him. But Gyökeres is in the prime of his career. He's a pure goal scorer, and he's still doing things for Arsenal. I think Saka and the wingers like Martinelli are benefiting from having a Gyökeres in there because he drags defenders away from them. Because if you then double up on Saka, you're leaving Gyökeres one-on-one with the goalkeeper, and he's going to bury most chances, at least big opportunities anyway. As non-Western people, what is actually Boxing Day? Well, it's the day where people open their presents, right, from Christmas Day. I don't do things like that, but that's obviously a common tradition in England. And yeah, Boxing Day, people still continue giving presents. They might open gifts on Christmas Day, but then in Boxing Day, they'll have even more gifts. And it's just like another day off and just continuing the festivities of Christmas. Josh says, I had Sanchez, Richards, Williams, Timber, Caicedo, Sarr, Ndiaye, Saka, Pedro, Haaland, and Voltemada, with Semenyo, Wan-Bissaka, and Konsa on the bench. Keller as well. Did I miss any essentials? Should I have played Semenyo? I probably would have played Semenyo over Caicedo, but I understand why you did it. Yeah, I think you did things right in terms of your defensive line and overall, but I think benching Semenyo could be costly. He was incredible last season in big matches, and that's when he got the bulk of his returns, and he was very frustrating for me. But yeah, benching a player of his consistency and quality, despite the recent blanks, is a big concern for me. Which 3 PM game is the best one to listen to on a radio today? Maybe Palace Brentford, London Derby. Could be high scoring. I've gone for 2-1, but 3-1/3-2 crossed my mind. Could even be a high scoring draw, but that's the one I'd probably say. I mean, if I said something like Arsenal Burnley, yeah, I mean, you're a Liverpool fan, you'd still want Arsenal to drop points, and unless Burnley, deliver a successful hate watch for you, yeah, you're not going to be happy with that. Triple Palace, hopefully we have a good showing by Crystal Palace, although Brentford is quite in form as well at the moment. Yeah, I think 2 is the sweet spot for Palace, but for those that are free, I understand it. They've got the best fixtures for the next 5-6. No worries, Ahmed. I'm just trying to make it clear because I want everyone's questions to be answered. But yeah, like I said, I did talk about it before. Last international break this year? Yes. But that's after next week. So we still got this game week and then one more. Is Joao Pedro due a price change? He went down in price recently, so no, not for the next few days anyway. Shame. Love going out on Boxing Day, watching all the games. Yeah, so do I. But also the FA, EFL, UEFA, they all need to come together and also, fix things with the schedule, because you look at, for example, Crystal Palace playing 4 games in 8 days, and I understand Oliver Glasner's reservations and frustrations about it. So I think the best solution for that Palace-Arsenal game is playing it on Tuesday the 23rd of December, for example. So then Palace have a more balanced schedule. And it also means that both Arsenal and Palace go into the game with this kind of same level playing field because they both play a few days later on the Sunday. So it makes sense. Had 5 free transfers and 0.3 in the bank. Used them all, hoping it pays off. I just don't want to regret not saving some of them. I feel like I should have kept at least one. Yeah, when you got 4 or 5 free transfers, sometimes you kind of think, could I have kept 1 or 2 of them to be in a decent position next week just in case it goes wrong or, suspensions, injuries happen. So I get why you're saying it, but look, if you feel like those 5 transfers are upgrades or you needed to make 1 to get the funds for the other moves, then it makes sense. Another reason for keeping Cucurella and selling Joao Pedro for me is that during big games or times where Chelsea struggle against lesser teams, Maresca tactically uses Cucurella as a box-crashing winger. Look, I don't think keeping Cucurella is a bad idea. I just thought that going to Munoz is an upgrade and also Gabriel Timber, but I also think keeping a Chelsea defender or Sanchez in goal is viable for the next 3. Yeah, I reckon I messed up with Semenyo, and I guarantee Pedro won't score. Well, we'll find out some of these things by the end of today. Obviously, Bournemouth play tomorrow, but with Joao Pedro, maybe in the reaction stream, we can talk about that tonight. Ahmed puts his team: Roofs, Timber, Mukiele, Gay, Salah, Kudus, Semenyo, Foden, Haaland, Captain, Mateta, Thiago, Dubravka, Estev, Goodmanson, Asugu. You do have a lot of budget players. You've got Estev, Goodmanson, and Mukiele. That's 3 4 million defenders. And then you've got Sunderland with poor fixtures after Everton. I'll be honest, with the way I've seen things here, I don't know what money you've got in the bank and stuff and how many free transfers, but as much as Salah can do well against Villa, Man City, Forest and West Ham, it might be worth selling him and spreading the funds, because then you can get Saka, you can get, you can replace Foden quite easily to anybody you want, whether it's Mbumo, Ismail Assar, who could also replace Kudus. You can then upgrade your defense, which for me is very, very threadbare. You don't have much money invested apart from Timber and Gay. So I think probably selling Salah is the best thing to do in your situation. That's why I thought it was important for you to offer the context of your squad, because for somebody else, they might have had Salah and they've got only one or two in terms of 4 million defenders, and they've had like quite a lot of squad depth. I feel in your situation, you've got too many budget players, so I think selling Salah might be the best course of action. Christmas unboxing, effing boring, so annoying, just one game, says Twisted Parky. From a football perspective, yes, it's worth highlighting that, just in case Christians or people who celebrate Christmas get offended. Will Joao Pedro stop playing now Delap is back? Not necessarily. I think Joao Pedro will still play as an attacking midfielder, but we could see the odd benching or rotation, reduced minutes, because he has been suffering with injuries recently. According to Enzo Maresca, the same applies to Caicedo and a few other players for Chelsea. I think Enzo might have been another one, which is why I've not really been that keen on buying these Chelsea players recently. And of course, I've got Joao Pedro and Sanchez still. They'll be sold on the wild card. And if I feel like I need to sell them next week, I'll happily do so, even against Wolves at home. But yeah, if I ever get the impression that Joao Pedro could be benched in the next two, I will sell him. But as long as he's fit enough, I think he'll start those games for the Blues. Yeah, I covered that easy. No Liverpool week to just win. Yeah, look, obviously Liverpool need to get back on track. The next two fixtures are really tough. You look at the Champions League as well, Real Madrid. So yeah, the next three are quite grim. But look, Liverpool still have a lot of quality. Once they get the balance right, they can still get back in the title race, but it would need a massive effort. Happy football weekend. Likewise, Lager. And Anish, I don't know what you're doing there, mate. I'll be honest with you. I also covered the lineups. If you rewind the stream, you can see it. De Kuiper isn't starting. He's on the bench, which is something I talked about yesterday in my Predicted Lineups podcast anyway. I'm on a free hit. My dumbass put Mosquera in the team for the 0.2% differential because I thought Saliba was injured. Well, Saliba was a doubt. He came off a halftime against Crystal Palace. He didn't play against Brighton in the Carabao Cup, and Arteta said he's still doubtful, and they'll see where he's at. But yeah, it doesn't completely surprise me that Saliba starts. I thought Mosquera would. I thought that they wouldn't rush Saliba back, have him ready for the Champions League, but maybe we're going to see Saliba benched in match day 4 instead. Yeah, Boxing Day isn't religious, but obviously you included Christmas in that. But I understood what you said from the beginning. I was just trying to make it clear for people. Anthony says, should I use my 2 free transfers from Gordon and Gyökeres to Mateta and Bruno before price rises? Look, if Gordon returns against West Ham, you might feel, oh, I can keep him. The same goes for Gyökeres, and it's possible that they both return this week. But I do like Mateta and Bruno as a duo long term. I think it's better than Gordon and Gyökeres, but I'd wait for today's matches first, especially Arsenal. Wait for that and then make a final decision. But long term, I do prefer Mateta and Bruno. Let's not forget, though, that Fernandes has been very, very disappointing. Thanks for being honest. Appreciate it. Good luck this week. You got a jaw-dropping team for Game Week 10. It looks decent on paper, but yeah, unfortunately, FPL and football is not played on paper. I appreciate the feedback and the good question, and all the best for Game Week 10. After watch a show before kickoff. If I'm not back for the reaction stream, must mean I'm hiding in shame. Yeah, look, there's no need to hide in shame. Sometimes things go wrong and don't go according to plan. It is what it is, right? All we can do is learn from our mistakes, maybe, analyze, what kind of changed. Also, sometimes luck plays a big part, right, in FPL and UCL fantasy. In my opinion, most of it comes down to luck. So hopefully it's on our side. Teams that have major disappointments so far. Well, Liverpool, after the start they had, they were playing poorly, but they were still getting the results. I felt it was unsustainable. I never expected them to lose 6 out of 7 in all competitions and 4 consecutive games, but Liverpool have to be up there. Another disappointment. I would say maybe Chelsea in certain games, but it's very hot and cold with Chelsea. It feels like 1 minute, they're definitely finishing top 4 or 5. They are going to challenge for the Champions League and different things. But then, after 1 or 2 bad results, it goes the other way. But I feel Chelsea would be a bit disappointed after their summer, winning 2 trophies. I felt like they could be a bit more consistent. In terms of overperforming teams, I think Sunderland, as good as they have been, I think they have overperformed a little bit. They've had good fixtures as well. And now we'll see if they can continue that. But obviously, beating Chelsea away is not easy. And they did a great job. They deserve credit. but they're one of the main overperformers in my opinion. Yeah, no worries, Dustapaki. Looking at cup games, never heard of AFC Toten. What? Oh, I haven't heard of them as well. I don't know what that is. I thought you were talking about Arsenal by saying AFC. Yeah, one last international break this year. Another vacation for you. Yeah, possibly. I mean, look, I usually still do content. If I do go on holiday, then yeah, it's I'll probably take the week off and, you know, recharge the batteries and then, yeah, go back at it. But I'll keep you posted. But ideally, I'd still make content. I like being consistent and also keeping you up to date. I know people still tune in. Thousands of you watch all of my UCL Fantasy and FPL videos, which I appreciate. So I'll try my best. But, you know, for every single deadline, I'll be there making the videos and live streams. FA Cup round 1. Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Yeah, I wasn't aware. I've done as much research as possible, but with FA Cup and the earlier rounds, I love the competition, but I don't watch most of the time. If it's on BBC or ITV now, I'll probably watch it whilst having lunch. Arne Slot angry that other big teams have better squad depth after the loss against Palace. He did kind of go back on those comments. He was trying to be more positive, I noticed, on Friday. Look, I think Arne Slot, he's kind of being labelled as like just looking at excuses, and sometimes I feel like he is doing it, but I think he's conscious about the narrative about him just looking for excuses and stuff, and he's trying to like draw back on it and, you know, trying to be, you know, calm, collected, and also more positive. But yeah, Liverpool, as much as they spent big money, they bought quality players, their squad depth is not as good as Man City's. You know, Chelsea have a lot of average players, but they've got such a huge squad, and Arsenal squad depth on paper in terms of quality looks really impressive now, but things can change very quickly. Ahmed says FPL challenge, Rufs, Cucurella, Salah captain, Voltemada, Haaland, Gyökeres. That looks really good, and I feel it's worth having an Arsenal attacker. I've got Gabriel for the clean sheet potential and also the possibility of scoring a winning goal, but I might change my entire FPL challenge setup if I remember to do so after ending this stream. But yeah, I have been going live for the past 3 hours. It has been a blast talking to all of you. If you haven't already, like this video, subscribe to my channel, and also hit that notification bell so you're always up to date on my content, both FPL and UCL Fantasy. For channel members and patrons, the best limitless team for Matchday 4 has been available since last night, so you'll get 2 days early access compared to everybody else. So be sure to go to the community tab on YouTube and also on my Patreon page if you have signed up already as a paid member. I do appreciate all the support, all the members, patrons, the super chatters, and those that gifted the super chats like Paredes, Ahmed, Ahmad, and also Napstars over the last couple of months. You've done great things for the channel. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM. There's also my Discord server, Blue Sky, the FPL and FPL Challenge Leagues, and much more. So yeah, just feel free to check them out, continue the discussion, and join my Discord server. That's a great community to be a part of. Cheers, Twisted Parky, and to everybody else watching. I'll see you very soon, hopefully tonight, for the reaction stream. Either way, I'll keep you posted. I wish you all the best of luck for Game Week 10 and the rest of the season, and I'll see you on Tuesday for the next UCL Fantasy Deadline stream ahead of Match Day 4.